Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Kinney County Groundwater Conservation District to order. We have Director Palmer, Director Schott, Director Bland, Director Robinson, Director Ward, and Director Lewis present. Director Minley is not here tonight. He's not feeling well, from my understanding. Everyone will please rise and join me in pledging allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Director Ward, would you please lead us in a brief prayer? Please remain standing.
Heavenly Father, Lord, we come before you tonight, thanking you for the bit of rain that you have blessed us with, Lord. We know that your plan, if it is your plan, Lord, to bless us with some much more needed rain. We ask that the decisions that are made here tonight, the discussions that are had, are peaceful and of the best interest of not only the county, of you too, Lord. Lord, we thank you for all that you do, and we ask that you be with these that have traveled to be here, Lord, and give them safe passage back. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated.
GNC people out there before. Why put your hand over your phone when you say the pledge?
Because I have to have it in my pocket.
Yeah.
Okay, first thing we have is a public hearing on the proposed draft rule. Mr. Ellis, I'm going to turn that one over to you.
Okay. Open the hearing. So I don't know if do we have a sign up sheet for the people who want to testify at the public hearing yet?
We've received nothing.
Nobody signed up? Okay. So
Oh, well, wait a minute. Let me look over here.
the purpose of
Okay.
the public hearing is to take public comment on proposed rules. These proposed rules are intended to implement what's called the guitar case. Many years ago, the Guitar family filed suit against the Hudspeth District because the Hudspeth District had adopted some rules that said only people that had permits could sell those permits for use outside the district. And the Guitars had exempt uses, but they didn't have any permits, which meant they couldn't then participate in the water market to sell water to El Paso. The eventual decision by the Texas Supreme Court was that those historic use permits that were granted to the farming community were granted not just for the amount of use, but also for the purpose and place of use. And if you were to change anything on that permit, then you had to, you couldn't keep your historic use protections and amend that permit to a completely different place of use. It didn't guarantee you an amount without the further restrictions of the purpose of use and the place of use. And then if you wanted to get a permit to sell to somebody or have a different place of use or purpose of use, you had to get, quote unquote, get in line with everybody else for a regular permit. You had to follow the exact same procedures that anybody that has a regular permit. Now, I have to tell you that personally, I like the idea of someone being able to give up a portion of their historic use permits in exchange for a regular permit that they can then use for a different purpose, because that takes a certain amount of water off the table for this over here in place of over here, instead of just growing the table, instead of just granting new regular permits. But that's not what the law allows at this point. The legislature could fix that, but they haven't. They've had 18 years to do so, and they haven't done it yet. I don't anticipate they're going to do it anytime soon. The only place now that has a strong water market for permits is the Edwards Aquifer Authority, and that's because their statute specifically says these are the people who get permits. They're the only people who could ever get permits. Once all these permits are issued, we're never issuing any more permits. And they are fully marketable. You can sell them to anybody who you want to within the system. The district can adopt rules to put in limitations, which they have done. You can't move water from south of Cibolo Creek to north of Cibolo Creek because it moves it closer to the spring flow that they're trying to protect. But other than that, if you're pumping in Uvalde and you want to stop pumping in Uvalde and sell it to saws for pumping in San Antonio, you can do that. But their statute specifically allows that. The enabling statute for this district and in all the other districts, 99 districts in the state, also do not allow that. So we have no ability to sell a permit other than if you're going to sell the property and sell the well and transfer the whole thing, you can do that, but you can't just transfer it to another user someplace else. You have to come get in line like everybody else. You get a regular permit, go through a regular permit process. This rule change implements that decision to make it clear, because we have issued so many historic use permits here. And by the way, historic use and existing use are essentially exactly the same thing. All they are is different time periods based on whether or not your historic use was one time period, your existing use was a later time period. They're not stacked. It's not two different kinds of permits. It's all one type of permit. And so we have these historic use permits. If you want to come get a regular permit and have a historic permit, you can. If you would like to give up some portion of your historic use permit, that doesn't guarantee you getting a regular permit, but you're certainly welcome to do so. And when we looked at trying to do some rules to do this last time, was 2017. We requested an attorney general opinion on this through the county attorney's office, and the attorney general at that time issued an opinion saying, yes, you can amend down a historic use permit as long as the regular permit that you're going to get isn't in exchange, but you go through the normal regular permit process in order to get that regular permit. So that's exactly what these rules do. These proposed rules do. The last time we tried to propose rules, it led to a lot of controversy. We had visits from 3 or 4 different attorneys on behalf of 3 or 4 different clients with different ideas and threats of lawsuits, and the board never adopted the rules. So we've been trying to go back through the various sets of rules that have been proposed over the years that never got adopted for one reason or another, to see if there's something we need to do to catch up. This is one of the first ones that we've done. So that's what we have. Do we have anybody signed up to testify at this point? Okay. Is there anybody who's interested in testifying or providing comments on these proposed rules? Okay. Does anybody have any questions about these proposed rules? I'm happy to answer whatever questions you might have about it. I run a hell of a meeting, Mr. Chairman. I think.
You do a lot better than I do.
I think we can close the public hearing at this point and move on to the board meeting.
Okay. All right. If there are no further public comments, we will close the public hearing and move to public comments on our regular agenda items. Do we have anybody sign up for regular public comments? Nope, not for anything. Okay.
I think I signed up, or maybe I signed the wrong form.
If there is anyone, that's fine. Welcome to speak.
Oh, this was sign-in sheet. So I messed up.
Well, if you'd like to speak, you can sign one of those other sheets.
Oh, I just wanted to make a request, that a suggestion. The videos that are created here are maybe could be made available on the district website, and maybe if that would be a consideration by the board to be able to have them published on there with.
They should be able to be embedded. Yeah, I believe I have embedding enabled.
Oh, perfect. And just a request, because it would be easy just to go onto the website and check out the video. And then there was some information that was shared on social media, and I wasn't able to find it anywhere. And it was in regards to, let me look at it real fast. I had to take a screenshot. Oh, lady brain. The water board removing spring flow protections at today's meeting. And I didn't see where that's published anywhere. And I didn't find this information anywhere, but it was on social media. Does anybody, I mean, it's the first thing I heard about it. So anyway, I was just curious, was this published on the website or on somewhere that we could find this public information? Does anybody?
No, I was informed about that post, and I don't have any idea
Oh, okay.
where that came from.
It seems official. It says the words official. So I just didn't know where it came from or where it's located. So
I don't know either.
okay. All right. But anyway.
It's the same post I looked at.
Okay.
Anyone else? Thank you, Ms. Bulwer. Number 5, discussion possible action, proposed draft rule 3.03E, 3.04, E3, E5, and 3.04. That's it. I get it right. Floor is open. Just for clarity, this is the rule that we had the public hearing on last month. 3.03 E3 and 5 and 3.04 pertain to the closing the 365 days on the testing period. And that's what this amendment is about. Any discussion? I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion and pass it.
To approve it?
Yep.
I will second that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. Let me see that. Okay, any questions or discussions about it? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, same side. Motion carries unanimously.
When will those go into effect, Craig?
Few seconds ago. What I will do is get my assistant to incorporate those into the current set of rules, create a bookmark PDF that you can put up on your website. We'll have that up by next week.
And that's just for applications moving forward. If they already had an
Correct.
application and it was the old.
Well, the same law applied, but yes, now it's clear from the rules what they have to do. Yes.
And then Greg, I guess, question, I think I know the answer, but the existing outstanding test well permits will be called in and processed in accordance with the new rules, or how do the new rules apply to the old permits?
The test well,
I mean, because there's some outstanding test well permits.
I think that if there's an existing test well permit out there operating right now,
There are.
this limitation that they have to come in and apply for a regular permit within 30 days of the end of that test well permit applies beginning tonight. I don't think that they get to continue to operate as long as they feel like under
Okay.
the old rule, which said maximum.
If you can talk with Janelle and whatever and call them in, because 30 days is gonna go by quick for those people, and
Yeah,
we wanna make sure they're
We
aware.
need to make sure, however many are out there, we need to make sure to notify that if they're beyond certainly or at or near their test well period, they need to get their application in as soon as possible. They essentially have, if it's already expired, they have 30 days from tonight to get that application in.
We have one in. There's just a couple items and I'm waiting on for it to be administratively complete.
Okay,
I'm waiting on the other one.
okay.
And if I remember correctly, there's only 2 left out.
They'll have 30 days from notification or from some.
30 days from the end of their test well permit, or if it's already ended, it'll be 30 days from tonight.
Any other questions? Okay, number 6, discussion possible action, proposed draft rule 5.02 D and E. That's from today's public hearing, and this is the Guitar Holdings amendment.
I do have a question on this one, Wes, if I could.
Absolutely.
Mostly for Greg, though, I guess. Greg, when we first started talking about this, and we're looking on page 2 of the deal here, but 5.02 D, and there's a list of the 5 things. And Wes, you'll remember that we talked about these 5 things pretty much covering what the guitar case.
We're 6, knocked it down to 5.
Yeah, there was 6.
Yeah.
So the question was, the 6th one, I would entertain leaving that in there. I thought that was not a bad idea. I don't have the supporting documentation. I'd sent you an email, Greg, regarding it, but when the guitar case decision was made, the verbiage substantially was in there, and it referred to, I think, the size of the well and the production capability, or it was like, if you substantially alter this and this, you need to get a new permit.
You have to go and get a permit,
You
right?
know, and the argument was made that substantially those two things are covered by the rest of this: amend the purpose of use, amend the place of use, increase the rate of withdrawal, which could be done with a bigger pump, add a new well to existing system, increase the annual groundwater. But I think what that verbiage in the AG's opinion on it too, right? The AG made an opinion on the guitar case. And in that opinion, it talks about substantially, if you substantially alter the size of the well, I think is what it says. But that verbiage was in your initial suggestion. I don't know if you still have it, but I'd like to just address that with the board. If the board's, majority opinion is we don't need that, that's fine, but I just wanted to bring it up.
If I may, I've thought about that a lot after removing it, and my problem was that it lacked specificity, and I've tried to re-examine that to see if that's right or not. Whether I'm comfortable with that, and whether or not there was some way to address that and be more specific. And one of the things that I thought about was, limiting. If you're granted an existing historic use permit for a certain size well, you shouldn't be able to increase that borehole. That would be significantly changing. So if it has specificity to it like that, I think it's very justifiable.
I think Greg is maybe digging, for it. I could probably look for it too, but I think my recollection of what it said, I meant to bring it, but I got a lot of things
Oh,
to bring here.
we've got it.
But it said substantially increase the size of the well, I think is what it said.
Substantially alter
a historic or existing use
Yeah,
permit
as a matter of
well.
fact, it's
or
right
well
over here.
system.
Yeah, that's exactly
So
what
it's
it says.
not increase, it just says substantially alter a historic or existing use permit. And I believe we changed it to talk about it because we changed number 3 because that was just amend the rate of withdrawal. We changed
And
that
you're
to
looking at what Greg proposed there, or
the
is
first
that?
time.
Yeah.
And we changed that to increase the rate of withdrawal.
Correct.
So it kind of stepped on that as well. So you can't increase the rate of withdrawal.
But I don't mind. I guess what I'm
Greg,
saying
can you
is,
see what the AG opinion on it was, or?
I'm going to pull that up real quick.
I
Okay.
don't mind addressing significantly increasing that. I think that we need to be a little bit more specific about it than the way it was worded. That was my problem with that. And then on top of that, I felt like some of these other ones already addressed it. But after we removed it for the last month, I've been thinking about a lot of whether or not I did the right thing, and whether or not there was a way to address it with specificity. The diameter of the borehole would be a way of doing that. There may be other ways of doing that as well, but I think we need to talk. I think we need to talk about that.
Talking about putting definitions to it, or
Well, in all honesty, we got these last month and we looked at them and we shot from the hip on them at the meeting and we proposed them. But the only one that I really feel 100% confident about is amending the purpose of use. If you amend the purpose of use, you obviously, underneath the ruling of guitar holding, lose your existing historic protections. And no one from the public that have talked to me about these proposed rules and from the conversations I've had with some of you directors about it, no one seems to be in opposition to, if you change the use, you lose your existing historic. There are lots of questions about these other ones. The place of use is one that has been brought up to me. What if I have this farm right here and I want to buy the farm next door? And they keep their water right, and I want to use part of this historic right on that farm that's adjoining to me. I think that's something that we need to talk about before we decide ultimately what we're going to do. I think we need to explore this and make it right for our rules and for our community and what we're doing and for our permittees and everyone else. And we probably need to put it in a workshop and have it in the public so the public can come in and talk to us about it and tell us what they think, and we can work through it. and get it a little bit better than what it is. I want to address this. I think it needs to be addressed. I think it needs to be in the rules, but I think we probably need a little more time to get it right. And I think 6 is something that probably needs to go back in there in some form, in some language, where you can't substantially alter that system. I just didn't like the language that was first presented, but I think we can do that.
To do it, just define it. Define what is, like I said, we'll just define it.
Well, that's an option. I mean, I don't know exactly how to go about doing it, but I think that it's going to take a conversation for us to come up as a group with a way to do that is acceptable to the public, acceptable to the board and the permittees, and we can pass it. But I don't think we're going to do that off the cuff right at the moment.
Okay, I think I got it here, Wes, if I could, if
Sure.
you want to,
Yeah, what the AG opinion says.
from Tracy King, that thing, Ken Paxton's letterhead.
Yes. What the Attorney General said is, and he quoted section 36.113A, which is the general permit requirement in chapter 36 of the Water Code. Districts must require permits for all, quote, drilling, equipping, operating, or completing of wells, or for substantially altering the size of wells or well pumps, except when statutes provide otherwise. A district may require a permit amendment application to state, quote, the nature and purpose of the proposed use and the amount of water to be used for each purpose. And the district may prohibit permit holders from changing how they withdraw or use groundwater unless the district approves a change in a permit amendment. So that's where it's talking about substantially altering the size of the well or the well pump. Now, yes, I think altering the size of the well or the well pump is generally addressed by changing the rate of withdrawal. If you're going to increase the rate of withdrawal, that you have to do one of those two things. You've either got to get a bigger well bore, or you got to get a bigger pump. And you might have to do both. I never say we can't quote the statute. You're in good stead when you quote the statute. Hard to say you don't have authority to do it, but I think that the list that we have now probably sufficiently covers that, unless somebody can tell me how pumping the same rate out of a bigger borehole potentially impacts neighboring property. If that's the case, then we probably ought to add that to the list to make it absolutely clear.
Well,
All right, yeah, so in your opinion, that would, number 3 would essentially say the same thing as what that says.
I think it's covered. If you're substantially altering the well bore or the well pump in a way that might impact somebody else, would mean increasing the size of the well bore, increasing the size of the pump, and otherwise increasing the rate of withdrawal.
Okay, that works for me, then I'm good with it. So I'm good with the changes.
Okay.
Personally.
So let me ask you this: is there any way anybody could come and do anything any different than what it is here that would alter it?
If they want to decrease the size of their pump or decrease the rate of withdrawal, they could do that without having to lose their historic use protection. But I don't see how that harms somebody else.
And why would they come in to modify?
Well, you charge fees based on the amount of authorized withdrawal. Okay, so but then they're going to, they wouldn't change the rate of withdrawal without decreasing the size of their permit correspondingly in order to stop paying those fees. So if you want to shrink your permit, you can shrink your permit. You don't have to change anything on your well to shrink your permit. We'll accept permits from anybody to amend down their permits at any time. Not a problem.
And Greg, one more thing.
no hearing required.
One more thing that's encouraging me to just vote for this now. So there be no secret that I would vote to pass this. But I mean, it's been a while, right, since we've been making this attempt to get this on the books. I mean, the guitar case happened in 2009, right?
We got the AG opinion in 2018.
Do you see anything in the, that needs to be addressed, not in this Bible.
No, sir.
I'd only like to make one point. This board has received it last month.
Yes, sir.
What
So
about,
that's how long we've had to think about it.
what about number 2, Greg? Amend the place of use. So like Wes said, if somebody bought
A
a
neighboring.
neighboring farm, or say a family split up a farm and one, they shared a well.
Well, that, I think that's covered by the guitar case as well, because they specifically mentioned um, changing the purpose of use and changing the place of use. In that instance, it was exported outside the district, but the Attorney General opinion specifically addressed that question, where they said the opinion was not limited to that. Let me find that section. Nope. Just saw it a second ago. In the opinion, the Supreme Court decided that under the statutes, when groundwater historically used for irrigation is transferred out of the district, it no longer qualifies for a historic or existing use permit, and the transfer must be treated as a new use subject to the requirements applicable to all new uses. Because all new uses must be treated uniformly, the court concluded that the district rules unlawfully gave preferential transfer rights to holders of historic and existing use permits. There were comments made disagreeing on the scope of the court's decision. You inform us that some landowners contend the opinion restricts the authorized use of a historic or existing use permit to its historical purpose of use. Others argue that guitar holding concerned only whether the groundwater transferred out of the district was a new use requiring a new permit, and that the opinion does not resolve whether a historic or existing use permit may be amended to allow other in-district uses provided the historic volume of production remains unchanged. We asked the specific question, following the Supreme Court's ruling in guitar, can a historic existing use permit be amended to change the purpose of use or place of use? Although the particular controversy in guitar holding involved out-of-district transfers, the court did not limit the holding to those facts. A later opinion by the court reiterated, in guitar holding, we rejected the argument that a district's discretion in preserving historic or existing use was limited to the amount of water permitted. Rather, we said the amount of groundwater drawn and its purpose are both relevant when identifying existing or historic use to be preserved. Indeed, the context of regulating the production of groundwater while preserving its existing use, it is difficult to reconcile how the two might be separated. Both the amount of water to be used and its purpose are normal terms of groundwater production permit and are likewise part of any permit intended to preserve historic or existing use. A district's discretion to preserve historic or existing use is accordingly tied both to the amount and the purpose of the prior use. Thus, under the guitar holding, a change in the purpose or the proposed use of water to be reproduced under historic or existing use permit is a new use, even if the new use would occur within the district. Whether a district must treat an application for an amended permit as an application for a new use permit will depend on particular facts and is a matter for the district to determine in the first instance, subject to judicial review. So the opinion specifically says, even though you can change it to another in-district use, it potentially has that same impact that you still have to go through that regular permit.
But the end use is still agriculture.
But they left the decision at the board level on that one.
Right. I think if you wanted to remove or not adopt the place of use change, as long as the purpose of use remains the same, and the point of withdrawal remains the same, and the rate of withdrawal remains the same, that might be okay under both guitar and under this AG opinion. You obviously potentially open the door for that place that used to be Del Rio, or someplace else. As long again, changing the place of use for municipal
I
use
see the argument you're thinking about.
to another municipal use someplace else. Could be any place else in the state. Not just,
Yeah, if we amend it to change it to say the property split up and we're doing it, now we're opening the door for them to,
Well,
Move the water
what he's saying is if you don't have it for the place of use, then theoretically somebody could want to move water from this farm or for agricultural purposes in Kinney County to agricultural purposes in Val Verde County.
and I doubt that's gonna happen, but it certainly could happen with municipal use.
And well, that was the next step was on the municipal side of it. If you have a municipal user or permittee and you don't have this in their change of use, then they can potentially go that route to do it. That said, we have one municipal permittee here that I know of, Fort Clark Springs Mud, and I don't think they're going to be selling water out of the county, but
Well, we have a municipality that sells water, but they don't have a permit.
pardon me,
They don't have a permit.
who does? Oh, well, yeah, we have a municipality that have permits, so they're not regulatable anyway. No matter where we put in the rule, they can't change the place of use. They don't have a permit to start with.
Intelligent minds disagree on that question.
You said too, Greg, that, personally, I don't have a problem with this, like you suggested, but you said you didn't model this out of the blue. You modeled this out of what other GCDs do, and, this is not uncommon. I mean, guitar case needs to be upheld by our rule,
Yes,
because we could be liable if we don't.
Yes.
Right.
and I don't,
I move that we accept this rule as printed.
a second that.
Okay. I disagree with this. I don't think it's the right thing to do at the moment, but so be it. We have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3. All those opposed, same time. 5-4, 2 against. Motion carries.
There are not 7 board members present, I don't think. It just said 5-2.
You're correct. It is 4-2.
you got it right.
Thank you. Moving on. Number 7, discussion possible action, approval of minutes from the November regular board meeting. I should have put Greg over there in that seat.
Honorary.
Pardon me?
Honorary.
Honorary. Entertain a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes. Any discussion? Corrections or additions? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Number 8, discussion possible action, Vince Claus, district hydrologist. You got some cough drops left.
I do, and a bottle of water over here, which I'll grab now. Also got to figure out where to stand so this thing isn't just shining off the back of my head the whole meeting. So I'm gonna cozy up next to you, Director Palmer. So, good evening. Got a couple things to take care of tonight. We'll start with hopefully what's the easy pieces of tonight's conversation. First is I provided another project update on task 1, 2, 3. I believe that's in your board packet in section 8 there. Let's see. All right, so that's the report. This in the back behind the report. Yeah, so you're gonna have to flip to the back of the section 8 here, and then you'll see the memorandum. This is just where I'm providing the board with the updates on task 1, 2, 3. Those were the tasks that were approved by this board as part of what we're calling fiscal year 26 hydrogeological consulting services. Task 1 is the recommendations for rule changes. Still slowly working on that, as the main focus has been providing support for desired future conditions, joint planning. Couple updates there. Remember, the updates are in bold italics in terms of what's changed from 1 month to the next, in terms of how we're kind of moving things around from something that was in progress to something that was completed, and or things that were added as it relates to some changes in the schedule. The key thing there under task 2 is we've met with TWDB twice. That's November 24th, and then again on December 1st. Those were formal meetings. I also had an informal meeting with TWDB on November 21st. So we've had 3 conversations specifically about the DFC in Kinney County, and then the resulting MAG, which TWDB assigns to the district. Also provided the district with a draft technical memo on our findings. That's the report that Janelle, I believe, emailed out on Friday. That's also in the package here in section 8. And then in addition to that, we've continued to process and analyze the pumping and water level data, and source aquifer designations for the wells here within Kinney County. That's part of task 3. So that's the monthly update. Any questions I'd be happy to address. All right, the second thing here in section 8 is the task authorization amendment. This is something that I brought to your attention at the last board meeting. That initial on-call or project management for on-call hydrogeological consulting services task authorization had $25,000 assigned to it. We've worked our way through that 25. This is a task authorization for another 25 tacked on to that initial task authorization. So a simple budget amendment. What we've also done is we've also updated some of the line items as it relates to description of services. That first task authorization said 4 meetings. We've bumped this up to 12 now based on this new money. A lot of that initial money was spent having conversations with board members, having the ability to workshop kind of what those preferred deliverables would be for fiscal year 26. From this point moving forward, I really see this as just being able to respond to emails, answer phone calls, and attend board meetings in terms of how this pocket of money will be used for. I would prefer action on this tonight. I know my accounting folks would like to see action, so if that is the board's wish, I would appreciate a motion on this one.
Any discussion? I move that we amend our initial.
Do we have the money there, Janelle?
Yes, sir.
Our initial by the 25,000 here on the task amendment, task authorization amendment number 1.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the amendment to the task authorization. If there's any discussion or questions, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Right. Now for the meat and potatoes of tonight's discussion. Marty, do you mind pulling up slides? So just wanted to provide a bit of a refresher in terms of what the goal was specifically related to the task, what we were trying to do, what we are hopefully going to be successful in accomplishing. That is revisiting, revising, and lowering the MAG. This conversation does not revolve around any changes to the DFC. This conversation is specifically looking at how do we take a MAG that's 70,000 plus acre feet down to something more reasonable. Tonight, we'll go through our findings on this subject matter. You'll see that we were able to come up with 2 recommendations. One recommendation effectively makes that MAG 0. The other recommendation makes that MAG 6,200 acre feet.
So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to take a little bit of a stroll down memory lane, talk about what the DFC actually is, what does it mean, and I'll provide a little additional color and context in terms of where I believe things have kind of gone off the rails, specifically related to the DFC and our understanding of what it actually says. There's a lot of extra content in the letter here. That's what I'm going to read from. The slides are more so for the public so they can follow along. But what we've done here in this technical memorandum is just provided a little brief introduction, what we're trying to accomplish here, which is what I just outlined in my opening comments here. Then we provide some background. And Marty, do you mind going to the next slide? That background specifically talks about the formulation for the DFC in Kinney County. I wanted to point out a few things at this point in time. I wanted to call attention to what the DFC actually is, and that is in Kinney County, that drawdown, which is consistent with maintaining at Los Moras Springs an annual average flow of 23.9 CFS and a median flow of 24.4 CFS. And this is the key piece of this. This is based on scenario 3 of the Texas Water Development Board's groundwater flow model. So this last piece in this is what's key in the entire discussion that relates to the DFC. So the two main findings that relate specifically to this point is that the DFC is a statistical indicator. 50% of the time, spring flow should be higher. About 50% of the time, spring flow should be lower. When it's lower, it could be 2 CFS. When it's higher, it could be 60 CFS. It really doesn't tell us anything more than that CFS or that the DFC is an average for what that long-term 56-year model period showed us for what spring flow was. Now, I've got some other comments about the model I'll make later. The other key point here is the DFC is explicitly tied to annual end-of-year conditions. So when we talk about the DFC and when we talk about we're not meeting the DFC, well, really the only time that becomes relevant is at the end of the year on December 31st, based on the way that the model predicted this 23.9 and this 24.4 CFS. Once again, all because of scenario 3, specifically within a tech memo that was run by Texas Water Development Board. Any questions from the board?
And that model's from 2011.
It is, but they're not weather models. We don't have to update these all the time as new data comes in. However, everyone within the groundwater community, including Dr. Hutchison himself, has said it's a bad model. All right, next slide, Marty. So why is there confusion related to the spring? Well, I think what normally happens here is people, they go to the Texas Water Development Board's website, they look at the summary report for the DFC in Kinney County, and they read this little excerpt here, which says nothing about scenario 3. It just talks about average and median flow. Well, that to me is very different from what the actual DFC is, which is based on scenario 3. And you may say, okay, well, you're wrong. Well, in the 2021 explanatory report, it actually calls attention to the groundwater flow model that Dr. Hutchison created, which the DFC is based on. Now, it does not specifically reference scenario 3 here. However, when you compare what happened in 2010 to 2016 to 2021, when you follow the resolutions that the GMA had passed, it's the same GFC that was first adopted in that first joint round of planning, which references scenario 3. Next. So, and then if you still don't believe me, the Kinney County Groundwater Conservation District Management Plan confirms that the GMA 7 DFC for Kinney County is expressed as an average and median loss Moras spring flow based on scenario 3. So the management plan, which is what the district manages by, has the correct DFC, in my opinion. Once again, this is based on a 56-year model simulation. So this is simulating pumping conditions based on that 70,000 acre feet and what its impact on spring flow were. And correction, 77,000 acre feet. So there's some baked in limitations to this model. However, what it did have is it did have historic spring flow, and that's what it calibrated to. So it's relatively in line, but we'll get back to that in a few minutes here. Next slide. So after we took a look at what the DFC was, after we really understood kind of the history that relates to, how things have changed in time, what we decided to do is we thought it would be pertinent to take a look at pumping. So this is using the pumping data sets that the district's been providing us through EcoCai. And what we were able to do is we were actually able to better assign aquifer intervals to some of the unknown pumping wells. What we've done is we've plotted all those by different colors here. The Edwards is that shade of purple. The Austin Chalk's the shade of yellow. And what we do see is we see a substantial increase in pumping in 2020 through 2024. And I assume 2025 will show something similar. So what we've seen from our analysis of pumping is during the 2009 to 2015 drought, pumping was around 4,700 acre feet per year. And during the more recent higher pumping period from 2020 to 2025, pumping's about double, 9,700 acre feet per year approximately. So that's key because we're going to circle back around to that in a few minutes. We have really good data for 20 years here, and then we're going to be able to compare that really good data to spring flows. We're going to also be able to compare it to precipitation data. And that's what we have to work with. We have 20 years of really good data. That's it. The other thing we have is we have daily spring flow data. We have monthly precipitation data. We have annual pumping data. So we had to eventually develop a methodology that ties all that together. Because what we can all agree upon is that the model is poor. It's inadequate at best. And so, next slide.
Can I stop there for a second?
Yes, please.
If I could. That's
Yes.
on your chart here. It says Edwards. So is that the Edwards Trinity Plateau?
It's the
Is
Edwards.
that the Edwards?
It's the Edwards
Is it all the
Trinity
Edwards?
Plateau. And
Okay.
this is all
I
currently.
mean, just, not to lead into
Yeah.
our future discussion here shortly, but, is it what is it?
Yeah. So for this, let's keep in mind it's draft still.
Sure.
We were working quickly, and so you're correct. That is the Edwards Trinity Plateau. And the other clarification, this graphic specifically does look at all pumping in Kinney County. It doesn't differentiate between GMA 7 or GMA 10 at this point in time in the conversation.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Next slide. And so within the report, we provide those summary statistics. This is table 1 and table 2 in the report. Those summary statistics kind of show you what those average pumping volumes are for the period of record, which is 2003 to 2024. And then the drought with baseline pumping is what we're calling 2009 to 2015. Then drought with increased pumping is what we're calling 2020 to 2015. So what we have on the screen now, we've made the transition over to precipitation. So if you're following along in the report, we've now moved ahead to page 9 in this discussion. So I mentioned we have really good data for the last 20 years. Well, our spring flow data, our precipitation data goes back much further than that, but we don't have pumping data to correlate to. And so what we're having to do here is we're now having to shrink our understanding of this aquifer system from 2003 forward. So that's what we're seeing on this slide here is I do know we do have additional precipitation data. However, in terms of what we have, in terms of where we have pumping, spring flow, and precipitation, we're now working with this 20-year period moving forward in the discussion today. So a couple observations to make from precipitation data. So during the entire period of record, so 1940 to present, mean precipitation is about 2 inches per month. That's based on the climatic data, the climatic record. When you look at that drought period from 2009 to 2015, monthly average rainfall is about 2 inches. So perfectly in line with what the historical record tells us. When we look at this more recent drought period, the monthly average for rainfall is about 1/2 inch lower. So what we're able to start doing now is we're able to start comparing what happened in 2009 to present day. So yes, we have more pumping present day, but we also have a more severe drought pump present day. So key factors to keep in mind throughout this conversation. A couple other observations. Back in the 2011 drought, which is that 2009 through 2014 period, we had much more extreme periods of intense drought. However, there was a lot of relief between those extreme periods. And that's what this graphics on the screen is showing us. We get these really steep climbing red bars. Those are consecutive months of below median precipitation, but then they're interrupted by multiple months of higher levels of precipitation that's in line with the climatic average. That's what we're seeing in 2011 in that drought period. In this more recent drought period, we're not seeing as many steeply climbing months without below average rainfall, but we're seeing a lot of them, and we're not getting as much recovery in the rainfall events that we are seeing is what that information is telling us here. So that's the takeaway from our conversation specifically related to precipitation is yes, the drought in 2011 was severe, but this more recent drought as a moving average is more severe based on that monthly average rainfall.
And those rainfalls are quad 807 stuff.
Yes. And then we also looked at some of the mesonet stations, and there's one that correlates really nicely to quad 807. So we looked at it in a couple different ways, but once again, this is our findings report. I think I failed to mention it at the beginning. The report that you will eventually receive, the technical approach, is about 20 pages longer than this is. So this was just providing the bare bones for a productive conversation tonight.
And this is a draft too. It doesn't say draft, but is this a draft that's in our package or is this like
Yes.
your final?
Yes, that's also a draft
This
here.
is draft.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So once again, Los Moras spring discharge. I know we have it since the 1900s, our pre-1900s. We had to simplify things to that 20-year period of record where we have pumping data, highlighting that area, the 2011 drought, once again, highlighting the more recent drought. Two things to point out there is in that 2011 drought, the spring only went dry based on our analysis of the data for about 3 days there. We've seen multiple days of dry spring flow in multiple consecutive years here in this more recent drought. So observations, what we're doing now is we're analyzing all the data, and what we're ultimately going to do is we're going to look at how this data correlates across the board between our various variables here. That's really our only method for revising the GAM at this point in time, or providing the technical justification for the Texas Water Development Board to revisit the MAG. So just kind of outlining and laying some of that foundation here currently. All right, next slide. What I wanted to do here is just show what that spring distribution looks like. Now, this is the period of record that we're showing on the slide. For those of you that are following in the report, I believe this is on page 15 here. What this shows us is this is showing us what that distribution looks like for all the different spring flow events we have. And then what this is also doing is this is showing where spring flow is based on the daily median, and spring flow is based on the December 31st median. Based on that daily median, our average is well below our current DFC. So when you look at the historic record, the average is below 20 CFS, yet the DFC is based on 23.8 CFS, which is supposed to be the median over that long-term average. When you look at the December 31st median, it's also below 20 and 20. So this is where we started to notice some additional disconnect with the model and what the data actually shows us. When you actually start looking at the data, what was presented to us as an average based on scenario 3 is actually a bit higher than what the actual average is when you start looking at the data. Now, I'll clarify that in a minute here. Question from the board?
Question. This is slightly off topic, but how was 24.4 and 23.9? And we don't need to go, because this, I don't have that much concern about history, but just a little bit. How did 23.9, 24.4, whatever, how did that originally happen?
So it's based on that scenario 3 model run. It's a simulated spring flow. So what it does is it uses actual spring flow data, but it also fills in the blank where spring flow data is missing. And then what it does is there's a sensitivity analysis that you can perform. I haven't found that yet, where we can actually look at how many times spring flow matched actual conditions. My guess is it's pretty variable the way the model predicted. So our current DFC is based on a broken model, and it's based on scenario 3.
Yeah, okay, because looking at the old stuff from Gunnar Broom back in the 80s, if you average from all the data years forever, the average is pretty close to 23.
Well,
so I didn't just know if they put 23.9 in the model and then they put 77 in the model and the model said, oh, that would work.
It went the other way.
So I'll get to that in a minute. I have a slide that hits on that point. This is the period of record. So this is through 2025, this slide here. Do you mind going to the next slide, Marty?
Can I ask
This slide here, I actually take a look at it based on these different averages. What I've done is I've shown the period of record, the median for spring flow, and then the average, the mean. What we're going to do is we're going to focus on the bottom box here because that is the December 31st totals. That top one is the period of record. So if we're trying to stay consistent with the model, based on 1900 to 2025, spring flows below the average over that 105 or 125-year period. Let's try to be consistent with the GAM, that 56-year period. We looked at the exact same spring flow metrics that we have for that same period. The median was 21.35 and the mean was 23. So when we looked at the exact same 1950 to 2000, or 1950 through 2005 period that the model used, we came up with lower spring flows. They were close, as you just indicated, 23.08 as the mean, but then the median was down at 21.35. This speaks to that rightward skew we were just looking at on page 15 on that graphic, where we get a wide range of distribution events, but
So the model
is broken.
The model said we'd get, if we pump 77K, we'd get more than historically what we got.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Now, when we look at pre-2020
Time for a new
pumping,
model.
I know pre-2020, so 2020 to today is where we see all the increased pumping. But if we look at that historic period up and through 2020, we're looking at a median spring flow of 19 and then a mean spring flow of 21.95. So still, below the average or below the current DFC, just looking at the average. When we look at the drought 2009 to 2015, we were at 6.49 and 7.12. When we look at the current drought, we're at 5.61 and 6.62. So current drought is more severe. The current drought has another 5,000 acre feet of pumping and is only showing us an average spring flow of half a CFS lower. Now, going back to the graphic I showed a few slides ago, we see that we've had multiple periods with no spring flow over the last 4 years now. So
What page is that? Sorry.
so I actually modified this, I think slightly like this. Yeah, I added
This
this
is
columns
really
to this from the report, so it's going to be a slight modification, but it's a right spot for you there.
Okay. If we don't have it, that's fine. We can get it later. But
She's going to be page 14.
this one right here. Okay, thank you.
So trying to find correlated events is what we're attempting to do through all this data. Next slide. This is just a simple overlay with all the data we've shown. We've got our increased pumping on the bottom overlaid with spring flow. On the top, we've got drought and precipitation events overlaid with spring flow. This is really just for illustrative purposes to help kind of wrap your head around all the data we've shown. It's just a simple overlay of what the data is showing us. We have lower spring flows today, higher pumping. We also have lower rainfall events today. So 2 things to keep in mind, because the next thing we're going to get into is a regression analysis, which is how correlated are these events. Next slide, please, Marty. So I mentioned at the start of this, we have to develop a technical approach to provide the Texas Water Development Board to allow them to find some sort of justification to lower the MAG. Looking at the data that we have, we thought, let's just do a simple regression analysis. Let's look at the data and let's see where data is correlated. Let's look at where pumping, precipitation is correlated to spring flow. What we first tried is a multivariate linear regression analysis. What that means is we're trying to correlate pumping and precipitation to spring flow at the same time. So using those 2 variables, RR squared, which is how correlated are these events, was between 0.3 and 0.5. And we developed 3 different models where we tried to predict what spring flow would be like based on those 2 input variables. As you can see from this graphic on the right side of the screen here, I believe this is going to be page 19 in the report. We overpredicted spring flow during the 2011 drought pretty significantly. We could never figure out how to make these numbers match spring flow. You also notice the model is always under predicting on the way down and slightly over predicting on the way up. So it's close in some periods of time, but during these periods of drought, there's just things we can't explain. And that goes back to just how complex these aquifer systems are. We're dealing with a giant block of Swiss cheese. That giant block of Swiss cheese has faults in it. It's got these igneous intrusions, and it's also got multiple layers and compartments to how water fills those cavities. So what we think is happening is as you get to these more extreme drought conditions, things are much less predictable in terms of how water's flowing through that system. Maybe there's one giant bathtub down there, but when you're at higher levels, you've got multiple levels of bathtubs that are feeding flow from one to the next. There's still a lot that we plan to learn about the system, and that's what the task we start in January is allowing us to do, is to redefine that conceptual model. Right now we're close, but between 0.3 and 0.5 in terms of how correlated these events are, that's really not what we were hoping for at the end of the day in terms of providing Texas Water Development Board with a useful tool. Next slide, please, Marty.
Just so everybody understands, 1-to-1, completely correlated.
Perfect.
Right. So the farther you go down towards 0, the less correlated it is.
Yeah. So
right.
When you're by 0.3, it's pretty insignificant. 0.5 shows there is some correlation, but just to reiterate, these are just correlations. We're not talking causation. We're talking how correlated these events are. And so we said, okay, well, the multivariate analysis didn't work. Let's just try a simple linear regression where we look at how pumping impacts spring flow, and let's look at how precipitation impacts spring flow. On the top, we have that annual pumping. What you can see from this is we were only able to generate an R-squared of 0.1 based on what that annual pumping shows us. What we also see based on that color gradient bar on the right, this is different levels of discharge that's illustrated there. And so the warmer colors, the yellows, the light greens, those increase as you get to the right side of the screen, which is showing an increase related to precipitation in that top graph. So that graph, it's telling us, well, pumping is poorly correlated, but based on this distribution in terms of this heat gradient, we are seeing a correlation in terms of higher spring flow values trending towards higher rainfall values. Okay, well, let's take a look at rainfall. Well, rainfall is where we're actually able to generate the strongest correlation between all of our variables. We looked at rainfall, plotted it on this chart here on the bottom, and we were able to get that R-squared value up to 0.71, which is pretty well correlated. It's not perfect, but between all the different variables we analyze, precipitation and spring flow are the most strongly correlated variables that we were able to assess.
May I ask for clarification?
Yes.
So it was annual pumping that was used, but was monthly pumping used? Because common sense tells us there's a correlation. Whenever irrigation use is the highest from April through September, you can go down and see the spring go down during those months. So it may not reflect in the annual pumping data, but the monthly pumping data certainly has a more sensitive correlation to spring flow. And you can witness that with your own eyes.
So we only analyzed things on an annual basis because we had annual pumping data. We had to then reduce our precipitation data to an annual number. We had to then circle back around to spring flow at December 31st because that's how the DFC is monitored.
But it may be leaving out some insights that monthly pumping could help.
There's a lot of insights left out of this. They're saying it's a crappy model.
I'm sorry, I was addressing the.
Well, you're not supposed to be talking.
Okay. Well, hang on just a second here. Now, we had a question, and I don't mind questions being asked, but no argument in the audience over it. Okay. Please continue.
All right.
I also have a question.
Pumping's not strongly correlated is what this is telling us.
If let them get to the end, and everybody, I know y'all have some questions. We'll open it up and let Vince answer your questions, but let them get to the end of the presentation real quick.
Just a
Probably
reminder,
won't be quick, but
we're developing technical justification, a quantitative approach to allowing Texas Water Development Board to revisit the MAG. That's the point of this exercise here. How do we reduce the MAG? That was the initial concern. This approach is working us towards that. Next slide, please, Marty. So from that regression analysis, and this is on page 21, we started working towards what is our analytical approach going to be that we provide Texas Water Development Board that justifies a revisit of the MAG. What we did here is we then worked our way towards what we're calling a conditional probability analysis. So how likely are certain things going to happen based on certain variables? So the way you read this is we've got the average in the middle, which is that dark line, and you've got the 75th percentile, which means 75% of the time, things are going to happen below this line, 25% above, and then we've got the 25% at the bottom. So 25% of the time, things will happen below, 75 above. So what we're trying to do is something very similar to what Dr. Hutchison has done in your management plan. We're developing that envelope of possible outcomes. And so the reason we have to go that route is because we have a bad model, because we only have 20 years of data, we're very limited in terms of what our approach can be at this point in time. But what you notice here is when you have lower precipitation, which is on the x-axis, you have a wider range of outcomes. The one thing that, strikes me here and I find fascinating is you've got these very high pumping events that cause the decline in spring flows, and you've got other very high pumping events that don't. You've also got this event down here in red around 5,000 acre feet of pumping with about 24 inches of rainfall, where we also saw no spring flow conditions. So this is speaking to how it's not a perfect one-to-one anywhere. We've got a strong distribution of different types of events that happen within space and time. It's a combination of pumping. It's a combination of rainfall. That's all this is telling us is there's multiple factors at play here, but based on this data, we can start developing some sense of certainty in terms of what to expect. So when you get around 15 inches of rainfall, you would expect pumping to be somewhere around 7,000 with a wide range of outcomes. But as you start increasing precipitation, so once you get to 30 inches of rainfall, that band starts to narrow, where pumping historically will go down with increased rainfall. As you start getting to 40, that band gets narrower. You're going to have more certainty related to what your pumping is as it relates to precipitation at a certain point in time based on this probability analysis. Now, this is only based on 20 data points. Statistically, we shouldn't be doing this. You need 30 data points, but this is the best available science. This is the data we have to work with at this point in time. Next slide, please. This is taking us towards our recommendations. Multiple meetings with TWDB, multiple conversations with my staff, really thinking about what is the path forward here. We believe there's two viable path forwards. The first is what we're labeling option one. Consider the Edwards Trinity Plateau Aquifer in Kinney County as non-relevant for joint planning in GMA 7. What does that mean? That classification only applies to joint planning, and that would not diminish Kinney County's authority to manage, monitor, and permit groundwater production locally. So what this would effectively do is make the MAG 0. That's this recommendation. Justification for this approach is that the DFC is framed in terms of long-term statistical spring flow metrics. It's hard to interpret, and it's difficult to manage. When we're managing based on the current DFC, which is what we're still going to adopt if we go that route, is a statistical indicator, which means 50% of the time we're higher, 50% of the time we're lower. I mean, that really doesn't do anything for us in terms of a management goal. 50% higher, 50% lower. That's a crapshoot. We see strong correlation in climate-driven variability and loss of Moras spring flow, which is outside the control of a GCD or GMA. There is insufficient evidence that policy level changes in pumping are likely to generate a meaningful change in the DFC. This goes back to comparing that 2011 drought period to the current drought period. We see twice as much pumping, but an average spring flow that's only 0.5 CFS lower. So is that meaningful? Is that significant? At the end of the day, I would say not really. Also, Kinney County, we're talking a relatively small number. We're talking 4,000 acre feet of water here in terms of what that increased pumping looks like. Let's say we're talking 10,000 acre feet of water. That's still a very small piece of water in terms of the larger piece of the pie here for regional water planning. I'm tying this back to regional water planning because that's what the DFC informs, is a MAG, that is a joint planning tool that people use to move water across the state. So we have a relatively small and localized role that the Edwards Trinity Aquifer plays here within Kinney County, and really has no sort of impact on regional water planning at this point in time. So this is the justification to allow us to move forward with this option. This is just an option, option number 2.
Now, hang on.
Yes, sir.
Just to be clear for everybody, when he says non-relevant, it's not saying that it's not important, that it shouldn't be regulated, that he's saying for planning purposes in terms of water supply into the future, for one reason or another, this source is not relevant to that planning effort.
To the state's
And-
planning
to
effort,
the
right?
State's planning effort. And for, you know, the other time when in my experience when that's happened, actually I think it was also Edwards Plateau, if I remember correctly. And that was when Kerrville challenged the DFC that was adopted for Kinney County. Was it Kinney County? No, I'm sorry, for Bandera County. And the challenge there, Blanco County, it's for Blanco Pinellas County. This is long time. It's like the first round of planning, I think. And there they were saying that, you know, they think they should be able to put more water from the Everest Plateau than their DFC and their MAG would allow. What the development board determined was the amount of exempt uses of that particular source were going to take up 100% of the available water supply. And because they are exempt uses, they cannot be regulated by the Groundwater Conservation District, and therefore that was not a relevant aquifer. So, you know, rather than going the way that Kerrville wanted, which was give us a bigger bag so that we can have pump more water, they got a zero bag as a non-relevant aquifer because there's no way the district can regulate all the pumping to the level that would allow any goal for that particular aquifer. So that's essentially what we're saying is if it's outside the district's ability to regulate in a meaningful way, they can't use it. They cannot use it for their planning purposes. Like
That's correct. And that goes back to this first point here, which the current DFC, all the analysis I've done, all the analysis Texas Water Development Board has done over the years, it all says the same thing. That, or my apologies, the second point here, there is a very strong correlation in climate variability here. And so no matter how badly we want to manage spring flow to a DFC, a lot of it is outside of the control. When we look at those long-term averages, all those long-term averages are below the current DFC. So historically, it's already hard for us to meet the DFC based on the long-term averages. That's the justification for this. And this is an option. I believe both options that I present tonight are good options. I like this option because it allows us to move away from a bad DFC based on a bad model. This option allows us to say, we're going to move away from scenario 3, which is 50% above, 50% below. This empowers this board, Kinney County, to manage groundwater locally in a way that makes more sense than what the current DFC is. We're too late to change the DFC. So option number 2, which, do you mind going to the next slide?
I'm out on that, Vince. You sure you want to say that?
I do. So option number,
because of the, I think what you just said is that for the current round of planning, we're too late in the process to consider an alternative DFC because they don't have time to go through the 9 separate factors they have to look at and evaluate what the impact of that additional DFC is. We're not too late to
Says who?
choose DFC for the next round of planning.
so the technical justification that's required, the board actions that would be required between now and February are nearly impossible, in my opinion. And you're right, to go through all 9 factors, I mean,
Who's doing that work for this GMA?
it's Bill, Dr. Hutchison.
Well, time out. Well, we might as well go there right now. The DFC is a policy, not based necessarily totally on data. The DFC timeline is exactly the same as the non-relevant paperwork timeline.
To change the DFC, you have to provide technical justification and go through all 9 factors.
You do, but the time frame to do that is exactly the same as you're up against to provide the justification for non-relevancy.
We already have all that information now.
Well, my question would be, why was all that work done and the new DFC work wasn't done? And you can feel free to answer that, but you know, the title of this thing is DFC. And the first thing, by the way, is not the MAG. The DFC precedes the MAG. So the DFC needs to be determined first, and then the MAG follows the DFC. And there's plenty of you know this.
The board hired me to develop a methodology to support a reduced MAG, not to update or
I know you
revise the
believe that. I
DFC.
think that might have been a miscommunication, but that's because this says, and we've talked about it before.
I'm completely lost about what you're talking about because he never got to the second option. So
And that. Well, yeah,
That's what any of us
you know,
must
I
know
don't know what the
about.
board's, but this, this non-relevant. And
So
I
as-
appreciate, and I'm listening to you.
As
Vince,
I
I'm listening to you.
synthesized all the data,
I'm listening to you.
as we went through all the data, when we unpackaged the DFC, this option only became apparent in the last 2 or 3 weeks here as we really started thinking about what the data we had to work with was showing us, what it was telling us, and the overall impact of precipitation in terms of being strongly correlated to spring flow. It led us
Oh,
to
yeah,
evaluate and think outside the box, and that's how we arrived at this option.
And there's a difference between changing a DFC and declaring the aquifer or that portion of the aquifer non-relevant. In the
Sure.
Kerrville case,
A
the
big
petition to change the DFC. And what the development board did is they said there is no DFC because it's not relevant. And so
So that's
that-
what happens when you go non-relevant. There is no DFC.
That's right. It just comes completely
But-
out of the plan.
That does not take away from this board's ability to still manage, plan, and permit groundwater locally in a way that aligns with its management goals.
Well,
Hypothetically. In a perfect world.
the primary justification that this board has to try and regulate groundwater to protect spring flow is based on the desired future condition.
Currently,
Without that desired future condition, we don't have anything in our enabling act or in chapter 36 that we can lean on to say we need to protect spring flow. And right next door, we have the Edwards Aquifer Authority, whose only job is to protect spring flow. And so
Well, we were ready.
when a court looks at the law and says, the legislature knows how to pass a law that lets or directs a district to protect spring flow, look at the Edwards Aquifer Authority Act. And the Kinney County Act doesn't say that. Then we need to lean on something other than our statutory authority to say we need to protect spring flow. So to the extent the DFC gives us that authority, we have more authority with it than we have without.
correct.
So what's option 2?
Option 2. Once again, these are just options. So using that enveloped approach that we just went over, this is the conditional probabilistic approach to how we can provide an analytical tool that the Texas Water Development Board can use to justify revisiting the MAG. We can use that same conditional probabilistic tool. What we can do is then we could lean on a regression model, which tells us on average at 26.2 inches of precipitation, spring flow is maintained at the current DFC level. We overlay that with that conditional probability chart and we get 6,200 acre feet per year of MAG essentially. So this one's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We went over the regression analysis, went over the conditional probability analysis. So let's lean on those. Let's see what the data tells us. And that puts us right at 6,200 acre feet per year
That's up to the Water Development Board, right?
to accept it.
Yeah, they either accept that analysis or they don't. They accept that GAM methodology or they don't.
Correct.
Once the GMA decides, the groundwater management area decides on what the desired future condition should be, we give that to the Water Development Board. They run whatever model they choose to use as the best available science and model for this area, and they tell us what the MAG is. So we would have to make our case that this is the methodology they should use.
Which is the report that we're prepared to finalize and develop here for the board.
I want to understand the point you're making about if we deem it non-relevant. If we go out of the GMA plan by deeming it non-relevant, it seems to address what had been discussed by this board before I ever got elected to it. They were considering a rule that said the MAG was unreliable permitting process because locally everybody's been concerned about this inflated MAG and lowering it. If it were deemed non-relevant, Valverde County just did this recently. I think their ideal was to keep water speculation out of Valverde County. It gets us out of the statewide water plan. When we had this overinflated MAG, people were looking at the pumping levels and the MAG number and said, oh, there's all this water there that we can go get. And so they want to do water projects here. If we were at zero, there wouldn't be a lot of speculation either. On the other hand, downside to the district would be justification for doing reductions based on sprinkler. That's what I'm hearing. We'd be hard pressed to justify the DFC.
I think that's accurate.
Okay.
The primary purpose, the desired future condition, is to establish the MAG. The primary purpose of the MAG, it's not a permit limit for this district. To the extent the pumping routinely exceeds the MAG and production, and we see aquifer levels dropping, and we're getting, or spring flow dropping, we're not meeting our DFC. It can be used as a petition to show the district's not doing its job. Other than that, the MAG doesn't really apply to what we do. The MAG directly applies to regional water planning groups because when they're looking for a water supply, they cannot go beyond what the MAG says for Kinney County to say that's how much is coming from here. Very first round of regional planning, when they figured out that they were about 50,000 acre feet short of water, they went, groundwater from right there. Bam, we balance.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter whether the groundwater was there, whether the district rules have allowed that, they just picked a spot and said that's where it's going to come from. And so the DFC process was created to put some handcuffs on the regional water planning groups to not let them go invent groundwater without any consideration of what the local regulations are or what the local conditions are. So the MAG ties the hands of the regional water planning groups as to where they could say that there's an available supply here. And that in turn ties the hands of anybody who wants to get a permit or wants to get funding to develop that supply. So if you want to go develop a water supply in Kinney County,
Because that's what regional water planning is about, is where the state's going to spend the money.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Okay.
And Greg, and for everybody's, we keep saying, and Vince, whatever, we keep saying option one, if whatever, the board decided to somehow do that, vote to declare the non-relevancy, which I haven't been convinced is even close to being a proper decision. I think the other people in our GMA 7, our neighbors in GMA 10 they're just not gonna like that. I don't know. We'd have to ask you, Greg, but like you mentioned, like if we go non-relevant, and I guess my point is, and there's lots of them, but the MAG, we keep saying the MAG is gonna go to zero. The MAG doesn't go to zero, the MAG goes away. There is no MAG.
There is no MAG.
MAG is not zero. MAG is not a MAG. There is no MAG.
To the extent there's no MAG, the regional water planning group has no number they can rely on for a supply, so they could not include any part of that aquifer as part of their supply.
Right. And there's no DFC.
And there's no
So it's just on the local water board to do right.
It's entirely up to us.
Yeah, no.
And let me make this clear. We don't get to decide relevance. The water development board gets to decide relevance.
Yeah, and that's on these slides. It's in the GMA 7. Edwards Trinity is relevant now. They've decided that it is. And they need to be told and applied to decide if they decide. They might not decide, even if we decide it's non-relevant, which I'm going to propose we definitely don't do. That is not an option that I understand. And I don't agree with it. But, the chances of them even agree with it, I can't believe they ever would.
Just remember, the GMA for Blanco County said, we believe it's relevant. We believe this should be the DFC. Kerrville didn't like that DFC, petitioned that to the Water Development Board, and Water Development Board said, not only is that not a good DFC, it's a non-relevant aquifer, and that banned.
That could happen.
That
in their
could
case.
happen. Right.
Sure.
So if nobody went up there to argue it's not relevant, but that's the decision they made.
Right, but that's not our case.
And the reason
We hadn't had it yet.
this idea actually came up is thinking about Valverde. And Valverde, they've had a DFC based around spring flow. Their leadership there recently decided to abandon that and to go non-relevant for Valverde. We're going to just take us off the map for regional water planning.
You know, Valverde doesn't have a GCD.
Well, right. But
They don't have anything.
So
and they
it-
don't, and they are non-relevant. And, you know, guess what? You know, good luck to them.
No, there was a big project that was pretty relevant, going to pump from Valverde County into Seco Creek Sinkhole just about 3 years ago.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, good luck. How are they going to manage their water with no GCD and no
They-
rules?
They absolutely can't. And
They can't.
the lack
Yeah,
of
they
the lack of
cannot.
the DFC and the lack of the MAG, while that ties the hands of the Regional Water Planning Group and it prevents development board from funding a project, it doesn't stop the project from being funded by somebody else.
Yeah.
This is true.
All right.
And
If
so
you don't have a groundwater conservation district, you have zero protection for your property rights, for your spring flow, for anything that you've got. At that point, in Valverde County, it is 100% rule of capture. Meaning, there's nobody, the courts won't stop it, there's not a district there to stop it, state won't stop it. Anybody can do whatever they want to on their property, regardless of how they damage everybody else.
now,
Same in Houston County, by the way, they're finding that out.
continuing, just a final few thoughts here on option 2. The point Greg hit on, there is a chance Texas Water Development Board does not accept this due to that lack of data that we're using to justify all this. So there is some uncertainty based on the meetings I've had with TWDB. I'm 95% certain that they'll accept this approach, but there is a chance they say this isn't good enough, and then it kicks us back to 77,000 acre feet again. So that chance still remains. The other thing about this specifically is this readopts a bad DFC based on a bad groundwater model. So for the next 5 years, we have a DFC that's 50% above, 50% below for spring flow.
And a CFS we can't meet, right? So, I
But-
mean, you're just,
But could we think outside the box and figure out how to get a new DFC in time?
I've looked at the timelines.
I mean, could we hire, help? Can we get a
We need-
subcontractor to do some stuff for you?
This board's going to need about 9
Or-
public hearings between
can
now and
Yeah, hang on.
But can we, Well-
it's possible. Do I think it's
can we get,
doable?
can we mobilize the, resources of Freeze Nichols? Because you got a big company. Can we propose more cash, more people and
So-
a new DFC?
So here's what I'm up against. We have to provide reports. We have to have the board provide us direction. That's what I'm hoping to get here tonight. We have to then come back to the board, present all those findings. The board has to then agree with our findings, and all that has to be done before the February GMA 7 meeting
18.
on February 18th. That's how much time we have left here.
That's where they hear the initial inputs, right? Because it's 2027 when they vote on it.
No, they're going to vote in April at their April meeting on all the proposed DFCs and sign resolutions. And then they'll submit those to the Texas Water Development Board before the May 1st deadline. And then at that point in time, that opens the public comment period for 90 days. And then we start working into the 2027 calendar. But the clock stops for us at the February 18th meeting on all of this. And
Okay.
so,
Quick question.
yes, sir.
You said if we go with like the 6,200, we're stuck with a bad model, we're stuck with a bad DFC for another 5 years.
But there's
If-
a 95% chance we have a 6,200 acre foot mag now.
Well, let me ask you this though. If we went the other way and deemed it non-relevant or tried to go that way, would there be an opportunity within that 5-year planning cycle to do the new DFC and all these things that we don't have time for 9 hearings in between now and February 4. Can we do that in that 5-year period? Does it have to wait? In other words, it sounds like option 2, you're stuck with it for 5 years. If you go with option 1, are you stuck with that for 5 years? Or can that change before the end of that?
You're stuck with the non-relevant, but correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, we can update the management plan at any point in time.
Yeah, you can.
New management goals and
Yes.
so as
You're required within 2 years of this district's adoption of the DFC, which by the way is not an option. You can't vote not to adopt it. You're in immediate violation of the water code if you do. So you're required to adopt the DFC that comes out of the GMA process. Within 2 years, you have to update your management plan, and within a year after that, you have to update your rules.
but we can update the management plan once we have more data that comes in next year to potentially justify.
You may update your management plan every year if you want to.
And so I've shared this with Director Palmer. I believe we need a DFC that's flexible, that has average spring flow for drought conditions, average spring flow for non-drought conditions. That's what I plan to work towards all of next year as we're doing the conceptual model is how do we get to a point to where we have a DFC that's actually meaningful, that's based on real data, not some simulation in the groundwater model, but how do we get to a place to where that DFC is also protecting what everyone cares about, which is spring flow under different climatic conditions, which I think then feeds into the drought management
Well, I
plan
think
that
that's, I think
you
that's
want at
what
the
we
end of the
agree
day.
on, I'm, whatever, DFC is 24 cubic feet per, there's history. But in my mind, any DFC is better than no DFC. I mean, the DFC we have, I shouldn't say any, the DFC we're stuck with
It's meaningless.
is better than no DFC.
I still don't understand how we're getting away from the DFC, Greg. When we set it to 0, we still have the DFC in our management plan, do we not?
A non-relevant aquifer, there's no desired future condition that the district can possibly meet with any regulations, and therefore there is no desired future condition, and therefore there's no MAC.
Okay.
But you can still have management goals for the aquifer.
You still have the right to regulate all pumping to whatever extent that you need to. Now, anytime you have a regulation, you're supposed to use, and when you adopt the management plan, when you adopt the rules, when you implement those rules through permitting, you're supposed to be using the best available science as to why you're doing what you're doing. So you could prevent interference between adjoining landowners or impact on everybody else. What you couldn't use is you couldn't say, for example, we're going to deny your permit or limit your permit because of the impact it's going to have on our desired future condition. There's not one.
Okay. I see the problem there.
And so, Vince, what do you propose? Like, for us to vote on this now, I don't know, we talked on the phone, what you're trying to understand the time frame either way, the time frame for non-relevant or the time frame for suggesting the option 2 is doable, but there are some restrictions on that, right? But, in my mind, I'd like to look at this a little bit before we, throw our hands up and do something rash that we're responsible for. So, and the public needs to, chew on it a little bit too, from what you're talking about.
So I'm just looking for.
So how do we
direction
do
tonight.
that?
Right. I'm
Yeah.
just looking for direction tonight.
If I may, since I am the presiding officer, the third option is that the MAG stays the same. I mean, we're up against timelines here. How are we going to explore this in between now and February and not make a decision on it tonight? I don't know how that we do that unless we're just going to decide that we're going to go with the other route or come up with a new DFC. I think we need to set it as the non-relevant for the time being. That's my opinion of it, and we can come back and we can rework our management plan and go accordingly.
All right. Well, I move that we accept option 2, 6,200, just like it says right there.
I'm sorry. What's our agenda item on this? This is the report for.
It may not be sufficient. It simply says Discussion possible action, Vince Falls, district
And the
hydrologist.
motion would be Vince, and the motion would
Hang on,
actually be,
but hang
I'm
on.
making a motion,
No.
sorry.
Hang on, Greg has a question that he's trying to finish.
Okay.
You've already made your motion.
Well, I'd like
It's
to
on
amend
the
it.
floor. Well, you can in just a minute.
Thank you.
Greg, please continue.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out what, I'm not. I'm not sure what action was anticipated or that the public knew the board might be taking action on tonight from discussion, possible action, Vince Paws, district hydrogeologist. I don't know that anybody thought that there was going to be discussion tonight about whether we should take option 1 or option 2 or do anything else. So we have a report from Vince.
So it would be, you would say that you think that that's insufficient notice to take a vote on that.
Yeah, I don't think we should take a vote on any option tonight because he's presented
Fair
it
enough.
to us, and we ought to talk about what we want to do on the next agenda item.
Okay,
I withdraw my motion.
okay.
I do need direction at some point.
How quickly?
I'm thinking about timelines here. We have to, whatever report we write, we want to make sure it's very well buttoned up and we're not spending a lot of time writing about something that is not going to be important for achieving whatever end goal we're trying to achieve here. So ideally, I would be coming back to the board at the January meeting with a stamped and signed report. Now, I can push that anytime into February too, but in terms of that meeting calendar cadence, I think the option here is a special meeting to at least allow me to have some sort of direction in early January to allow me to work towards finalizing a report sometime in early February, because that has to be done before.
What vote, I mean, what action item do you need from the board that we can put on the agenda?
So I need direction in terms of which option is the preferred option.
Okay.
And then I need to come back to the board with the report so they can
A
allow
final
me
report that
to-
they can then adopt and take to the development board.
When is our agenda?
GMA 7 at the
I
February
don't have my
18th meeting.
phone on me.
So a special meeting sometime the
Here,
first week of
let's-
January, like right after the new year.
Let's see.
Anything past the first week of
19th.
January
I
is
do believe.
really
Let's
Third
do it
Monday.
the first week.
pushing it.
Like
I'm
the
good for a
third-
special meeting next
Third
week.
or fourth, or I don't know what the dates are.
You want that? Need a second special meeting.
Right, because I wouldn't be able to
Well, the
finish it
second-
by the January
I just
meeting.
got her hand
The
up.
second-
Can we have a special meeting next week?
Is that too
I-
soon?
Let's cut down the crosstalk just a second here. We're trying to come up with a date.
That's a job. That's what it's-
I will get your question, ma'am.
It's the report writing. I've already run the model. It's writing the report. That's the challenge here.
You had a quick question. Well, we got to pause here, so.
Yes, so the question I have is on the option number 1, where we say it's non-relevant, we don't have a DFC any longer. What impact does that then have on pumping volume? I mean, can we then choose to mine the aquifer and just, everybody can pump away as much as they want to pump? And when we come to a new permit, we can just give them whatever, or
Please.
Okay. That primarily impacts what the development board can do in terms of funding projects.
Okay.
That's the primary impact from that decision. It doesn't really impact what this district can or cannot do in terms of its regulations. To the extent it removes a spring flow DFC, that makes it harder for this district to justify management plan changes, rule changes, or permit decisions based on impact on that spring flow.
I think the district can still do that.
They can. It just becomes harder to legally justify because we don't have the statutory authority or the DFC there to say it's your job to protect that spring flow.
Okay, and then at that point, if we become non-relevant, then the 77,000 acre feet number still stands for it,
No,
or does it go away? Because that's part of the DFC.
there won't be a mag.
Okay.
It's not a zero mag, but it's also not 77,000 acre feet. I mean, if anything, that frees the district up to do whatever number they think they need to do. And again, my only concern would be, we don't have that strong DFC there to say that's what we're trying to do.
You might just explain why a large mag is a bad idea, like what we have now.
So the large mag is a bullseye. I mean, that's what happens. You have water marketers, they go through the state water plans, they figure out where is there a lot of water. Kinney County has 77,000 acre feet of water. Let's go there. That's why it's a bad number. It doesn't mean a project will ever happen, but what it does is it at least encourages folks to look here for groundwater. Now, whenever that number is below 20,000, no one's ever going to blink an eye at water availability here because no one's ever going to think, they're going to get a project larger than 20,000. We're all watching what's happening in Houston County play out. There is a project that was proposed that was in line with what their MAG was, and that project's now having issues. And I think it was over the MAG in terms of one of those counties. And so it is something that people like to use to either justify a project, and then if you're on the other side, you like to use it to, make sure a project doesn't happen. And so when it's 77,000 acre feet, what it does is it invites everyone into Kinney County. People that are looking in Valverde County right now are also going to be looking in Kinney County based on the way the current water plan is. And so reducing that number is the objective here. Today, I provided two options based on all of our analysis, our understanding of the system, based on very limited data, and based on a really bad DFC is the reason why we came to option one here at the end of the day.
And that East Texas project you're talking about, which you can call the Kyle Bass project or the CEM project or the Red Town Range project, whatever you want to call it. The MAG, the DFC, state funding, 100% irrelevant. That's going to be privately funded. He wants to get he does have to, from two of the counties he's dealing in, he has to get permits for the district, and he's already having lawsuits and problems getting those permits.
Okay.
The third county he's been dealing with doesn't have a groundwater conservation district, and he's probably already drilling wells. So, if it's privately funded, again,
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're not state water plan.
That's right.
Yeah, I hear you.
But where you have a groundwater conservation district, you at least have the ability to say yes or no to permits or limitations on the permits or whatever conditions you want to put on the permits in order to limit that pumping. If there is a MAG out there, at one point the MAG was a permit limit, and we were required to issue permits up to 85% of the MAG. Fortunately, we got rid of that, but it has become more of a production limit, not a permit limit. And most of the state, the permits far exceed the MAG. And so it's a lot of confusion over what impact that has on what a district can and cannot do and what people can and cannot do. And
All right, let's circle back to a special meeting
okay.
because that's what we're talking about. If we're going to make a decision on this, we have to have a special meeting prior to January meeting. Am I incorrect? Did I miss anything here? Okay, so let's come up with a date.
Okay, if they are to vote at the January meeting on whichever report they direct you to do, to either adopt or not adopt that report, how much lead time do you need to have ahead of that to be able to have that report ready for the January board meeting?
3 to 4 weeks. So that February
Today.
that February meeting that the GMA is going to hold it on
the 18th.
The 18th. And so in terms of internal QCs and things that we have to do on our end, and then we have to bring that back to the board, would be my assumption to have them agree to send that to the GMA. That's where we're up against it in that January meeting timeline.
You need 2 special meetings.
Need one in early February as well.
Yes, sir.
Unless you don't think the board needs to see the final report before sending it to the GMA.
I think that the board needs to give you direction on which report to write, absolutely. And so that's more a question for the board. Do you, once you have said, we want you to do option 1, we want you to do option 2, or we want to leave everything the way it is, that's also an option.
Yeah.
then do you want to see that and have a vote on it here before it goes to the GMA? Do you have one more kind of, does that give you one more bite at the apple
To
say, yes or
review
no,
it.
we want to pursue this?
Right.
I got another cog in the machine here, or another
by all
fly in the
means.
ointment, if you don't mind. Looking at this deal from what the Texas code says, if the decision was made to choose, to not choose non-relevant, this talks about the DFC cycle and the option to choose non-relevant. If option one was voted to not be the choice, wouldn't you, wouldn't the mag, like, the mag change, is that really gonna apply right away? Or is it gonna be later down the road? Is the mag cycle the same, like, as the non-relevant cycle?
So
If the vote is to not do non-relevant, is there more time to do the mag? You know, and it might be 7 to 10, like Dr. Hutchinson said, it might be whatever, 12, I don't know. Definitely not 70,000, but it,
So the approach that we developed, the qualitative approach that is required by TWDB, if we're proposing an alternative means to calculating a MAG outside of a groundwater model, that's going to give us 6,200 acre feet. So we've developed that approach already.
right, but what's the time frame on that for the state?
So what's
Oh, okay. I think once we have the DFCs approved, and in this case, there'd be a DFC, it'd be the same
the
DFC,
exact same
Because
DFC.
we don't have time or whatever.
and so we have the exact same DFC. That's gonna go, it's gonna take basically one more year for all the districts to adopt those DFCs. At that point is when TWDB takes those and starts to determine what the MAG is. So it's gonna
Right.
be another, what's it been, 8 or 9 months to get the MAG out
27.
of TWDB. At which
Right.
point you're then required to then start updating your maintenance plan utilizing that MAG.
So the rush to have these meetings,
If you're going to do, let's put it this way, if you're going to do option one,
there's a rush.
there's a rush.
If you're not gonna do option one, there's not a rush.
That's true. But you
Option
have,
two,
but
so-
he has to know which one you're going to do, so he can draft up his report in
Option
time
three
for
is
the
the only
February
option.
18th.
Hang
Meeting.
on. Director,
Okay.
the other-
Option 3 is the only one with no rush. Option 1
Option
and
three.
2 will be rushed because we need to give him that.
Uh,
3 is going to stay the same. so
He
there's no
still
rush
has
on
to,
that.
still has to do a report for the February 18th GMA meeting under either option one or option two. If you take no action, then he doesn't write a report.
MAG stays the same.
And it stays where it's at.
Could I ask a question? Because something was brought up that if we don't get this done within this cycle, that we wouldn't be able to come back until 2030. What is that 2030 do?
We review the desired future condition and adopt the new desired future condition every 5 years. So we're at the end of this planning cycle. We're in the final year of this planning cycle. The next planning cycle starts next year. And we go through a 5-year process. So that has to be adopted by 2030.
Okay. So if we don't do anything right now, we can't do anything.
It won't change for 5 years.
It'll be that way for 5 years before we can do another deal.
Correct.
Correct.
And part of my problem with one of my many problems with the DFC process is, as Vince mentioned, once the GMA selects the DFCs, that kicks off a 90-day public comment period. David is frustrated, and rightly so, that he wants to make changes to the DFC. He's being told it's already too late because there's not enough time to go through all of the 9 various factors, which includes, the economic impact and sociological impact and all kinds of things of a particular desired feature condition. During that 90-day public comment period, you could walk in the door with the perfect DFC that solves everybody's problems, and we're going to tell you we don't have time to even look at that. We'll look at it next time. It'll be part of the next round of planning. That'd be, we could do that. I've tried to get them to say, the first time we did it, it made sense to have the public comment period toward the end of the process when we had all of the facts and all the information. As soon as we got that one adopted, everybody sees all those facts and sees what that desired future condition is and can see what they like and don't like about it. And the public comment period should come at the beginning of the next process so they can say, here's what I want you to look at this time. And I have not been able to get anybody
Makes sense.
to accept that. So I'm hoping this next session, one of the changes we make is we put that public if not move it from the end to the beginning, at least have a public comment, a mandatory public comment period at the beginning for people to bring what I want the DFCs to be next time to the group so they can decide what they're going to research over the next 4 years.
Sounds more efficient.
That sure does to me.
Back,
Do we have a January 5th special meeting, Wes?
I don't know. Hang on a minute.
I was just going to provide a little bit more clarity. We keep talking about these reports we have to write. What I provided to the board is 23 pages. This came from a 45-page document where we pulled out the most pertinent and relevant information for the discussion today. Right now, that larger document has a lot of information that is useful for option 1, and it has a lot of information that's useful for option 2. What we needed, the reason we need time to finish the report is because ultimately at the end of the day, we've got to tailor that report to whatever
One way or the other.
We need to focus on what's important for option 1, if that's the path we're going to go down. Or we need to focus on what's important for option 2, if that's the path we're going to go down. I can work on both simultaneously, but then I'm just burning budget on something that's not going to be useful at the end of the day.
Waste of
Because
money.
both reports are going to have a slightly different look by about 30%. And so making sure that we're providing something that is polished, it's buttoned up, and achieves the intended goal, that takes time, and that takes a report that has to cover multiple different data points and then provide explanation to those as well.
Director Palmer, you suggested January 5th.
That seems to be as early as possible.
Is
as early
January
as
5th
possible.
Is January 5th early enough for you to have a complete report on the 9th? It'll be the 20th, I believe. It's the third Tuesday, I believe, is what we meet. Right?
Yes.
I
Be the
won't.
20th.
I don't think I'll be able to meet that meeting on the 5th, but
No. I'm saying if we make decision on the 5th to give you direction, will you have time to get the report to us on the 20th of January, which would be our regular meeting? That's why David asked the date.
I can try, but it's going to be
tight
difficult.
because you need
Because
another
I
week.
have an internal QC review I have to go through, and that takes about a week.
If that's as best we can do, that's the best we can do.
Can we do it on the,
Unless
Can we do it
somebody
on the
else
23rd?
wants to suggest backing it up.
can we do it on the 23rd?
23rd of
They
December?
can't make a decision tonight on.
Hang on, ma'am. No, you don't have the floor. Please don't. We're trying to come up with a date here and everybody keeps going back. We're still trying to get a date where we can make a decision on this one way or the other. What was your suggestion, Director?
December 23rd?
December 23rd.
I think we have to wait a certain amount of business days, right?
We have to post. And I
You got
have,
that added up, David?
We'd have to, my recommendation would be to post that meeting tomorrow, or Thursday at the latest. They have a meeting on Tuesday, the 23rd. Probably could post it on Thursday.
We could do it on the 23rd.
You could have a meeting on the 23rd.
I don't have a problem with it.
I can't be there.
Is there a day next week you could think?
I don't know, does the second work? What are we doing on the second? As soon as I can do it, then I'll be around.
No, I think it's like
Yeah.
July.
Now, let me throw out one other option. I hate to suggest this. If you give him if you meet on the 5th, or the week of the 5th, and you give him a full, how long do you say, 3 weeks?
Yeah.
And his report would be ready to come out around February 2nd. So you could have a special meeting the week of the 2nd to accept that report. And it would be ready in time for the meeting, GMA meeting on the 18th.
If we want to try and thread the needle, there's no problem with me. We'll try and do it.
We need to make that motion for the special meetings.
So you're saying if we do it on the 5th or the 6th?
You suggested the 5th,
The
right?
fifth, and you can't be there the fifth?
I don't think I need to be there for y'all are just gonna pick one way or the other. I can be there, but
Okay,
They
I
were
can't be
there
here.
for that.
but
okay. Well, then, yeah, then special meeting on the fifth, that's,
Can we lump both of those to have one on the 5th and then 3 weeks later on the 2nd? And that
Yeah.
we already have.
Oh, to go ahead and set
special
them?
meeting.
I don't know why we couldn't go ahead and set both of them.
Absolutely can.
Yeah. Let's do it.
to answer your question, I
I
can't.
make a motion that we have a
Okay.
special meeting on January 5th and February 2nd for the.
Okay, I'm kidding.
What was the motion again?
I'm writing it down right now.
January 5th and then also February 2nd. So
All right.
both of these.
6 p.m. at this office.
And I will second that motion. Motion's been made to set special meeting for January 5th and February 2nd for this matter, 6 p.m. at this office. Any more discussion on it? All those in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, same side. Motion carries unanimously.
I will work with Janelle and Vince to make sure we have the proper agenda item, to make sure we can take action on what you need to have done. Okay. So, and I think it's gonna be a single agenda item meeting.
Sounds like it.
I don't know.
I don't know if you need anything else.
For that. And I'm at your disposal, but you let me
We
know.
do, I don't know why we should just do that one remotely if we need to talk to you, so. That's fine by me. Okay,
I'm happy to come out here.
Director Robinson,
yes.
if I could just make a comment. There was a comment regarding option 3 about just leaving things static and the way it is right now. Do you want that discussion, do you want Vince to address a little bit of that, just so you're ready? Just if you left the mag as it is alone. right
Oh,
now.
what would happen?
That
Pleasure, the pleasure of the board. We've been in here 2 hours. I'm about ready to call a recess for about 10 minutes, but y'all want to hear that option too? Let's hear it.
Status quo.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Same thing. We ended another planning cycle, knowing there's a problem with the MAG, knowing there's a problem with the DFC, and Kinney County.
Couldn't do
did
anything
nothing
about it.
again.
I'm not advocating for that. I'm
Yeah.
just a suggestion to bring it up so you don't have to.
Yeah.
No, it was good. It was good. Thank you, Jim. Okay. What's the pleasure, of the board? Do we want to move, do we have anything else on agenda item number 8? We beat that one to death. The board like to take a short recess? Everybody in agreement with that? 10 minutes. Okay, it is 8:09 and we are,
Thank you, Vince.
we are back in session.
Thank you, Jim.
thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. Take care, Vince. Drive safe. Ms. Hobbs, agenda item number 9. Ms. Hobbs, your general manager report, please.
Okay, since the last board meeting, we've had 3 exempt well applications. 2 of them up in the, I'd say, the northwestern part of the county. The other one, out on 334, I believe. The recent GMA 10 meeting was week before last. I did attend, Saturday before last, the Kinney County Groundwater Summit that was held down at the pool. It was a beautiful day. I did attend that. There was a good crowd. The speakers were good. There was one of them that didn't particularly care for a couple of things that he had to say, but overall, I think it was a nice get together for all those that attended. The next, let's see, January the 5th is the next GMA 10 meeting. And as we mentioned earlier, GMA 7 will be meeting on the 18th of February. And Marty and Bonnie and I wish everybody a Merry Christmas. If you're traveling, be safe on the highways. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hobbs. Number 10, review Texas Water Development Board Drought Index Aquifer Monitoring data. I think Mr. Burton has left.
You mentioned to me there wasn't any significant thing for him to brief, basically, I guess you'd say.
I haven't heard anything from him on that one. Anybody got any questions or comments on 10? I usually look at these after the meeting, to be completely honest. Takes a while to look through all the graphs.
Yeah, it does. Interesting information. You need to look at it slowly.
Honestly, those are the ones I like to look at for about a week before the meeting.
Yeah.
But one of the things, just, talking in general, since we got this agenda out, we're not moving on quite yet. One of the things that they recently changed on these that I really like is the elevation has been adjusted. Groundwater elevation has been adjusted to mean sea level. I don't know if anybody picked that up on these graphs, but that way we can kind of look at the level versus sea level to see if certain pools of water are higher or lower in potentiometric surface level. You can kind of see that on looking at this, where the water level's at, like if it's only at 1,000 foot MSL versus 1,010. I like that on the graphs. That's something they recently changed. I don't know if anybody else noticed it. Okay, moving on. Agenda item number 11, discussion possible action agreement for legislative representation. Mr. Ellis, we got a special session, I guess, huh? Or is this for next year? Go around.
Next go around.
This is for next year. Okay.
Yeah, this next session is going to be the busiest groundwater session I think
Ever.
I've ever seen, likely ever.
I think the last one was.
The last one was busy. It's nothing compared to what's going to come up.
Yeah, I have a feeling.
And we're going to see bills filed that do anything and everything from repealing the rule of capture, which in my opinion would be a mistake because all that does is bring more lawyers and courts into these decisions. I'd be getting smart for that, but I don't think adding more lawyers is going to be a way towards solutions. The up to and including statewide regulation of groundwater. When Chairman Harris was in front of the Texas Water Caucus this last summer, talking about the problems they had with the Kyle Bass project, several of at that point, only the Republicans were there because the Democrats had bugged out. If you remember, they'd gone off to Northeast United States someplace, so to break quorum. So the only people in the room were the Republicans, and several of the Republicans were saying, "I don't understand why these permits aren't issued by the Water Development Board or by TCEQ. Why don't we have statewide regulation of groundwater?" And that's a little scary. I think they got a good answer in that groundwater regulations are very specific and have to be tailored to both the aquifer you're dealing with and the community that depends on that aquifer. One of the examples I like to give people is that Fort Bend County is right next to Horton County, and 80% of the groundwater being pumped in Fort Bend County is used for municipal and industrial purposes, and 85% to 90% of the water being pumped in Horton County is being used for irrigation. They require different regulations. It's very difficult to have one set of regulations and treat everybody fairly. And of course, on top of that these are all we're talking about property rights. So whatever you impose on one property owner, you have to have a really good reason not to impose the exact same rules on the next property owner. And in terms of how you use the water, the things like that, that's maybe a good reason to have a different set of regulations for municipalities than you do for irrigators. But it's a whole lot easier if you have a different district over those different areas. From the time that I began working at the legislature, they have railed against single county districts like this one. And I have to educate them all the time and say, look, it's not a question. Doesn't each aquifer have its own district? Why isn't the GMA the one that issues the permits? Or why isn't the GMA set what the rules have to be and then let the individual districts issue the permits? And the answer is because, A, it's representative government. These are locally appointed or elected bodies. They have to answer to their local folks.
You say, tie this up in 2 words, local control.
That's right. So it's local management, local control of this aquifer. And more importantly, administratively, how do you have an election that involves lines that cross county boundaries? How do you collect property taxes for lines that cross county boundaries? If you put Comal County and Caldwell County in the same district, 90% of the taxable property value is going to be in Comal County, and at least half of the groundwater pumping is going to be in Caldwell County. So, how do you set the representation on the board? EAA is a great example. We have a 15-member elected board, 7 of them from Bexar County, the other 8 from outside Bexar County. Bexar County has 90% of the population. Now, they don't have a property tax, so they don't have to worry about that, but they got sued over that, and the federal district court said, no, you can do that because you're dealing with representation of the resource, not of the people who depend on the resource. And so they said it was perfectly okay to have 4 from the west, 4 from the east, and 7 from inside Bexar County. And even in the water code right now, if you were to have, you have a 7-member body, your districts are set by your statute. What Chapter 36 says is you have 5 to 9 members. You get to pick how many you want, and the districts have to be drawn in such a way that no single municipality is inside more than 2 of those districts. And that's, again, to keep from a city from controlling the entire board.
Well, I mean, when we set up the enabling legislation for this district, we did a similar thing, and we gave 4 seats on the board to rural directorships where there's actually a lot less voters at.
Right.
Most of the voting constituency within the county is within the city and the fort. And they got their representation via a county position, the city position, and the fort position, which gave them 3. And then rural in order to balance landowners versus folks in the city. So it's a similar thing where what Bexar County wound up with 7 versus 8, 3 versus 4, whether they live inside a municipality or in the rural area of the county.
Right. And so if you were to combine with an adjacent district or an adjacent county, how do you determine what that representation should be?
Right.
How do you determine what the funding should be? So there are lots of good practical administrative reasons why we have single county districts. The other problem we've had is Brazos County District was supposed to be a 3-county district, and one of them voted no. They weren't going to be in a district. So now they have a 10-member board that's split 5-5 between the 2 counties. One's urban. It's got Bryan College Station and Texas A&M, and the other one is rural. And I mean, it is.
The line is right there.
Difficult at best. So there are good reasons why we don't want TCEQ. And if you think statewide regulation is good, go try and get a permit in New Mexico sometime. See how long it takes you to get a permit to build well in New Mexico.
So Greg, can I ask you just so we can just let the board vote on this deal, and I see your package here and your, proposal. And on the face of this, this gives me a little pause. It's hard to part with $64,000, vaguely for me, but my question to you would be, what I've seen over the last year since I've been elected, and, just to ask you, like, if this is approved, could you, I don't know, and I didn't look at all your products from last year, but could you do a little bit of like, I talked to this guy and I, proposed in your behalf this, or I sent a, opinion letter to this committee, or, a little bit more than these bills passed and these didn't, is what I'm trying to say. Like, we know you're lobbying for us, but can we get a little bit of like, oh, like this is what you're getting, like, I'm doing this.
Okay, part of what I did last time, and then what I'll certainly do this time, is I'll ask you all what you want me to do, who you want me to talk to about various issues.
Okay, we're probably not perfect about that last time. Maybe we were, but
Well, what I'd really like to do as we get these interim charges is I want to bring you all the interim charges and say, okay, I would like the board or a committee of the board to take positions so I know where you stand on these various issues. And then I could advocate for those when we get up there. Now, I think you're looking more for the report back to you.
well,
is what
and
I
then,
asked
an
you.
advocate, I just want a little, just a little something like, hey, I advocated for you today. I don't know, it'd just be like a little feedback, like, hey, you decided you wanted to advocate for this because the committee said so. And so I talked to Senator so-and-so and, he was receptive to your idea or whatever, some little feedback. Like, so we can get a little bit of, we know you're doing this.
I'll be happy. Yes, I'll be happy to give you some feedback. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to report on every single meeting.
No.
Or what was said at the meeting. That's just
No.
I mean, not only is that based on the fact that one of those meaningful conversations I had was in the hallway behind the committee hearing 5 minutes before the hearing started.
Yeah, yeah, no, but just a little more like, more than this passes, didn't pass.
I understand. Yes,
All right.
I'd be happy. I would
All
be
right.
happy to do that.
All right, cool.
Anybody else have any questions about the service agreement? I'd entertain a motion.
Move that we accept this motion, this agreement.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept the legislative representative service agreement. Any other discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Let's see. All right, number 12, discussion possible action copy machine with Marlin Leasing. I don't know if anybody else has reviewed this. I don't have any questions about it. It's pretty standard. And the 60 months at $229 is the way to go as far as I'm concerned.
How much is a copy machine?
The problem that we ran
Are they that
into,
expensive?
the problem that we ran into at the newspaper, well, this has been 18 years ago. That type of copy machine that we didn't have near the functionality, and a used one was $3,200. A brand new one would have been around $6,000. And if it breaks or you get past your warranty, that's why they go with a lease nowadays. But board's pleasure. The problem with buying the copy machine is you're hung with the copy machine.
It's $13,740.
Well, we can certainly look at the price on one. Hey, let's Google it. Why not?
They provide the toner and.
We got Amazon.
Oh, they provide all the ink and everything? Are they pretty good about servicing it?
Yes.
It's like 8,000.
That's
almost 9,000. Just for the machine, it says.
And then you have to get
Years ago, when
service contract
the
too.
district was going broke,
Or, in other words, they come like every 3 months and check the machine.
Okay.
years ago when the district was going broke, one of the things that happened is they decided they had to get rid of their copy. So they called the copy company and had told them to come pick it up. They came and picked it up, and then they tried to charge us for the remainder of the contract. And I had to explain to them that under Texas law, if a governmental body does not budget money for a particular line item like the copier, they have no legal authority to pay those contracts. So they could sue us if they wanted to, but they couldn't collect anything. And they dropped it. So yes, you're signing a contract. Any services they actually provide, you have to pay them for. There is the provision in the government code that requires that. But if at any point any board votes to defund, and that's, by the
The
way,
copy
applies to
machine?
mine too. If you want to defund the contract, and there's no longer legal authority to spend the money on it, that contract is null and void.
Do you own yours or do you lease?
I use a printer. I don't,
We lease them at work.
and
Okay.
and y'all lease me.
But, and I will,
Let's do it.
listen,
If they're gonna service it,
Do it.
okay, we have been with the, South Texas copy machine since 2000, the earliest I've got in the files is 2009. It comes up on, 5-year, 2010 maybe, comes up on 5-year increments. This year, they are not going up on them. We're upgrading a step better than what we had previous time, but they're not going up on, it'll still be the $229 a month.
It's not so.
No, better copy or same price, monthly price is what I'm hearing.
it's real big. I make a motion we approve.
Sold right there on that one. Huh? I'll second that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand.
Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously.
Who seconded that?
I did.
West did.
10 copy.
Baker hate it.
Been your own business.
Left foot.
I do. Yeah.
Okay, discussion possible action financial statements for November 2025. Director Bland, you are up, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, here, let me give you this. This is the deal on events. I had started dating it already.
Okay, good.
So let me read this off real quick. So total income, $353,886.16. Total expenses, $67,739.85. The net profit and loss is $286,146.31. Ad valorem taxes receivable, $224,561.89. Expenses payable, $2,170.64. The net, $222,391.25. Accounts receivable, $13,161.92. The general fund, $18,736.71. The money market, $481,261.33. Petty cash, $316.72. The well log deposit, $4,300. Tax pool, $841,918.73. The first CD is $135,179.19. And the number 2 CD is $256,944.48.
I gotta ask you a question, fellas. Do we have to read that? Or could we just approve the doggone thing?
I just read it in the record.
You know, we review it. I don't know that we
Can
even.
we just do
I
we
don't-
have to read it? I mean,
to
it's
be-
cool, but
be
I'm
complete-
just like,
to
can
be
we just like, I
To
can
be
read.
completely honest, I don't know that we even approve it. It just says we review it. So
Like reviewing, you
I don't
guys,
know.
isn't there a way to, you say you submit it for the record or something, right? But
Actually, excuse me,
yeah,
If-
please.
actually, the motion should be to file the financial statement for audit. And that was
So we should have an action item on this every month.
relayed in other
So
words, you're
It's
you're
not,
not
it's not,
approved.
Probably-
not approved and it's not accept. It's to file it for audit.
Right.
To file for audit.
It's in the minutes for the offer.
And that was
Right.
something that the
The state.
state auditor's office mentioned because the board is not can't really approve it. There might be something that's wrong.
that
So the
action
best
item?
I mean,
action
but
is
could we look
Yeah,
at it in
so it
the
is an action
basic
item.
same way? Could we just look at, just like we looked
No, I
at
don't
the
think-
next thing and call the
No, I
investment
think the
officer
answer,
before?
I think her point is well taken. We have to have an action on it, but I mean, I don't know that we have to read it out loud. If that's your question. I don't know.
I would
We have
just
to.
submit that we don't read it out loud. We just look at it and is there any questions? And then we make the motion like Janelle says and make it and then we're done with it.
Up to the board as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't matter to me one way or the other.
I
We can
remember
review
Charlie
it.
used to say that number's wrong and then you'd be like, oh, that number's wrong and then
But-
whatever, but.
But
just
for
like,
the meantime, I'm going to move that we submit this
Yeah.
for audit. Is that the right way to do that?
Make the motion that it's.
Make the motion that we submit the monthly investment report for audit.
Second it.
Okay, we can have any further discussion we want to have on the matter, but we get that on the record anyway. And then we'll vote it down, we'll vote it up or down. You want to talk about it anymore? All those in favor? Opposed, same sign, motion carries 6-0. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, we can just read it.
It's up to y'all, but.
Doesn't matter to me. Number 15, discussion possible action, invoices received and invoices paid. Now, you can read over all those or you can look over them. Your call.
Just review. You're good.
That discussion or you?
This discussion possible action, we have to approve the invoices received and invoices paid. So, yeah, I mean, go in there and look at them, ask any questions you want about them.
I'll make a motion that we accept them unless anybody's got anything else.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second, and we got discussion. We don't have to immediately vote on it. So if anybody got questions about it, look through it for a second. Everybody's in agreement. We'll move on. All right, not hearing any other discussion. All those in favor of approving? Raise your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item number 16, director's request for items on next or future agenda items. Anybody got anything?
I gotta go to in-person visits with Greg and how they're decided.
Okay.
Don't.
In-person
I think
visits with-
usually the decision that's made to bring Greg here is valid. When Greg showed up to do that last public hearing, I didn't think that was valid. I'm not sure we need to change the system to bring Greg here. But my opinion would be that we don't need Greg here to say, does anybody have any comments? And even if there's 10 of them, I don't think that's necessary. There are times when it absolutely is necessary. And, I think we should defer, if that's how you guys want to do it, to the general manager and US, if that's, your purview. But I'm concerned that we don't give that adequate analysis and that we should give it a little bit more attention because it is, not cheap. So we need to, I guess I'd just say generically that could we, if it's not necessary, like on that public hearing, it wasn't, because it was a slam dunk deal on that, public hearing about the tax or the test well. We've been trying to do that forever. And, they changed 2 words in there from minimum to maximum, and then we're done. So in the future, could we give that, a little bit more due and not make it automatic to bring Greg here? Because
I haven't made anything automatic to agree.
I didn't say anybody did. I'm
But
just
we're-
saying,
we're-
I
we're
just
on
want to
future-
comment that.
Okay.
So do we need to make that does anybody think we need to make that an agenda item? Are we going to vote to bring Greg here?
That's what I'm asking
Or
for.
can we just agree that, we need to be somewhat more careful about it?
I have no way of knowing who's going to show up for what.
I
And
know.
Greg was asked here to come at that one.
Okay.
You obviously take exception to that.
Yeah, in that particular case, I do,
Um,
but.
I'm sorry, you do.
Yeah.
I
All right,
thought,
I got nothing
I
on
thought
that.
it was
And
useful.
then,
Do you want to have it on a future agenda item is the question.
No, I'm good. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Any other future agenda items anybody knows about? They want to bring up? Not, we're going to move on.
Something we might need to think about at some point is the old pickup we have.
I didn't know we still had the old pickup.
We still have it.
I didn't know that.
It's parked over there in the,
I didn't realize.
behind the sheriff's office under the tree.
Oh,
But it needs a battery.
what's the process of getting rid of governmental equipment when you want to get rid of it?
Oh,
Sealed bid.
I shouldn't ask, huh?
I'm gonna have to check that out. Honestly, I think the easiest way to get rid of it would be to contact the, is it General Services
Oh, hang
Commission?
on, I may be jumping ahead. Do we need to
you
get
want a
rid of it?
battery
If you just
for
need
it,
a
or do you
battery?
wanna get rid of it?
Yeah,
I'm
you want a
asking,
battery
do
for
you
it?
want to get rid of it? Because we really haven't been
Okay.
using it. We just use the other one most of the time.
Okay.
We can
Well, why don't we,
I
And
think
it needs
you
a
could-
battery.
I think you could list it.
Right, it needs a battery.
Like auction.
Let it rest.
why don't we put it on a future agenda item
Okay, that's good.
and talk about it next month? And we'll
I'll be
set
ready
it.
to tell you what you need to do.
Yeah, well, that
Okay.
way we have a little bit of time to figure out what we can do with
And
it.
maybe we need to, maybe we need.
You might have a
something
second
what
use.
you think about.
You might have a second use for it. You might want that one for running out in rougher places on the county or something. If it's, I don't know what kind of condition the truck is in. So
The new office might need a planter.
there you go.
Might be easier to donate it.
Yeah, there you go.
Might be easier to
Might be
donate it.
easier to get rid of it via donation to another.
Yeah, it's
You-
not a really.
Okay.
You got
Is it?
Okay.
It's a little. It's got some issues.
You could give it to.
Ah.
Does the local high school have
It's
like?
two-wheel drive, right?
No,
They
it's
can give us like a
all
nice
but it's not.
Give it to them.
Maybe, that might be, that might be easier.
Of course, they might hate us if we donate it to them. I don't know.
Well, they might donate
I
that.
had four-wheeler.
So let's have a future agenda item to discuss
Let's pick up.
the second pickup and what we're going to do with it next month. I'm going to make that motion that we have that as a future agenda item to discuss the extra pickup truck.
Okay.
Motion's been made and seconded that we'll put that on the future agenda item. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Any other agenda items?
Who motioned that?
I motioned it and David seconded it.
Thank you.
Number 17, discussion possible action, general manager evaluation. I'm going to move that we table this until next month. I got the last evaluation at the end of last week and I've got to do the summary. So I'll have that ready at the next meeting and we'll put this back on.
You could add that to that special meeting on the 5th.
That works great.
That would be fine. We can put it on the 5th. I should have it done. I mean, there shouldn't be any problem. We can put it on that agenda if everybody's down with it. As a matter of fact, I think actually when you table it, it goes onto your next agenda, even if it's a special meeting. Isn't that right, Greg? When you table
If
one,
you table it to the next agenda, it's on the next agenda.
well, we're going to table it to the next agenda,
So you can table it to the next,
not the meeting.
next regular agenda, and that would be next month.
No. We'll do it for the next meeting. We'll get it
Okay.
done.
Okay.
You
We'll
want to do
do,
executive session with that or not?
it'll probably wind up being held in the executive session.
And
Does it need to list that on the agenda?
You don't have to list it on there, but you can.
right, yeah, the agenda, the agenda includes a statement, you can go to executive session on any item that the Open Meetings Act allows you to go to executive session on any agenda item. Personnel discussion is one of those agenda items. That does not have to include the attorney. If you're going to have consultation with the attorney has to be there, obviously. But for personnel, it does have to have either be recorded or you have to do a certified agenda. I'd be happy to provide you with a certified agenda.
I'd like you to look over it. We do a certified agenda for executive session, but it's a form that was here from whenever. And so I'll send it to you to look over.
Make sure it's up to date for sure.
We were supposed to have executive session on every meeting.
It's on.
Well, it is.
It's on the bottom of the
It's
agenda.
on the bottom of the agenda. You can go into executive session for anything that's allowed
Right.
to have executive session.
Now, some districts put executive session as a specific part of the agenda to
Yeah.
kind of give people notices when we intend to kick you out of the room. But it's not necessary.
And I'm not sure back in the day, it may have been a requirement way, 30 years ago, because it was more commonplace in the 90s. You always saw it. They always had executive session on the agenda. They never,
And
I don't know if the rule
problem
changed or
with
not.
that was that people were using executive session to discuss anything they wanted to,
Right.
because it was on the agenda. So this last session, they amended the Open Meetings Act, and it's very clear now that you cannot discuss anything in the executive session that's not listed as an item on your agenda. I had long discussions with attorneys I respect that I've had long held. If it's not on the agenda, you have no business discussing it in the executive session. And they said, well, I think you can discuss anything that requires, discussion with your attorney. Not anymore. No, now
They took care of it.
It has to be on the agenda.
That's good.
I agree.
That's good. That's what it should be. Anyway, I move that we table this until the next agenda.
Okay. That's your
That would be my motion.
January 5th meeting.
Yes, that would be January 5th meeting.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. And we said that was, let's see, January 5th?
Yes, sir.
That's the next one, right?
January. Yeah.
Just make sure I'm not going to try here. Number 8, pardon me, go ahead.
Question real quick.
Sure.
So you're meeting on January 5th, right?
Yes, sir.
And cost you, what, 3 weeks to do this report? Is that
Two.
correct?
He wanted 3 to 4, but he's going to get 2.
Well, no, I mean,
No,
we're
he
telling
can't
me
make
on
them.
the
He can get 2 or 3.
27th.
Oh, that's
3 weeks
right.
and
That's
1
right.
day. Do y'all want to wait another week to review his report, or not just why don't you take care of it on the 27th?
Well,
27th,
well,
correct?
we can't do it. We can't do it that late in January because of the GMA 7 meeting, if I remember.
No. You can't. We have the special meeting scheduled for the first week of February to accept the report.
Oh, that's, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't have to give it to
Having
the
this
end.
meeting January 5th, that didn't give him enough time to finish that report.
Because our
3
meeting,
weeks on 1 day wasn't enough?
it was on the 20th is our meeting that month.
I thought it was 27th. I thought it's 4th Tuesday.
No.
No,
Okay, the website.
Wait.
3rd Tuesday.
it's 3rd Tuesday.
Okay.
Oh, no, it's 4th Tuesday. We moved it.
It is 4th Tuesday.
We moved it because of the holidays.
So you're meeting on the 27th, is that enough time?
I forgot.
I'm just
It is-
throwing it out to y'all.
It is the 4th Tuesday, but I thought he said that did not quite give, he couldn't guarantee having it done by then.
Okay, just,
And remember, we now have to post the agenda like a week, almost a full week in advance.
Yeah, now that they've got us on business days.
Right.
Mhm.
I'm good to put in the regular.
Did that
meeting.
answer your question?
well, yeah, you can put it on, if you had it done on the 27th, you could knock that a week earlier. That's why I have a separate. I was just throwing that out in case y'all thinking it was the 20th, your meeting's on the 20th.
No, this is all has to do with the scheduling with GMA 7. That's why we set those special meetings. This doesn't have anything to do with general manager evaluation. We're just tagging that on to one of these special meetings. Number 18, discussion possible action employees year-end bonus COLA. This is personnel, and I do believe that we need to go into executive sessions for this. I'm not sure exactly 551 point.
I made the motion.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah,
No, go ahead.
Have that meeting on the second.
That's right.
Let's go back to 27th. As long as.
Okay,
And you can.
so we'll recess and we're going to executive session at 8:45.
That's the way I let these two.
Yeah.
You just start being able to get rid of one if we don't need it.
We can act, we can make a motion to cancel that February 2nd meeting on the January 5th meeting.
Right.
Or the January meeting. I mean, if he doesn't have the report done,
Right.
January meeting, you're gonna want to have the meeting on it.
Right.
If he does, you may be able to address it.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
that'll have
that's
to
a good
come up on
question.
the 5th.
I like it. Okay, as far as employee year-end bonus and COLA, I think we need to do that in executive
Yeah, I
session.
agree.
So everybody can step out, please.
Yeah, we're sitting in their cars.
Okay, yeah, I don't blame them. I bet y'all were cold out there. Sorry about that. All right, it is 9 after 9. We're back in regular session. What's the pleasure of the board?
Hey, you know,
I think I got it started again, didn't I? Yeah, it's going.
yeah, it's going.
Yeah, I thought I started it. All right, we are on agenda item 19. Discussion possible action, employees, year-end, COLA, etc. I'm going to move that we increase a one-time salary increase for the 3 district employees of $1,000 each. For the month of December 2025 only, along with a COLA increase for all 3 employees in the amount of 3% for the coming year.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, same sign.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Motion carries. I move to adjourn.
Second.
Third. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.